Good evening, everyone. Thanks for the full house. It's 7 o'clock, and I'd like to get the meeting started. If we could all start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you. Thank you. Would you mind doing a roll call this evening?
Otto. Here. Westmoreland. Here. Eastern.
Here.
Mr. Dawson is absent as noted. Check.
Here.
Front. Here.
Great, thank you. That takes us on to the consent agenda. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes and bills. Anyone else? Tom is supported. Those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. On to the adopted notes of the agenda. Is there any additions or deletions this evening from anyone? No? All right. Okay, that takes us on to our next item, which is to call to the public. We have two opportunities to call to the public this evening. I'm assuming most of you are here for the public comment regarding the intent for the issue of the bonds for the Whitmore Lake Sewer Special Assessment District. So what I'd like to do is, if we could, we call the public right now just for our general items, and if you have comments regarding the bond issue, you could reserve them for the first agenda item. We appreciate it, but you can do whatever you'd like. And we have our first speaker, and once again, we do try to limit our speakers to 3 minutes. And this is not a question and answer time during the official call to public.
Mary Devlin, 9211 Brookside. I'll get this over with before you get to the nitty-gritty of the evening here. As this year comes to a close, we need to stop and count our blessings, not only in our personal lives, but where we live in Northfield Township as well, especially with all of the turmoil that this country and others have experienced. We also need to strive to make each day better than the day before. We need to be thankful for our families and our friends. And I want to thank this board and Howard for their diligence in striving to make our community better. Thank you also to Tammy Averill and her volunteers for all their hard work to make every program special. And I don't want to forget the Kiwanis and their wonderful volunteers. Last but not least, many thanks to Pam Sanderson of Peaberry's Bean and Beats for providing a place where local talent, both young and old, can come to show their talent and or just to enjoy the music. May we all be blessed in the next coming year.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak this time? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, great. Oh, yeah, come on up.
Good evening. David Perry, 9411 Earhart Road. Think globally, act locally. Words of John Lennon. Words worth keeping in mind as we discuss the future of our township. Will we keep an open space or build a subdivision with hundreds of homes? But the land in question is not just open space. It's prime farmland, an ever-shrinking essential resource in our township, our state, our country, and indeed the world. Most land in the world is too rocky, too poor soil, too hilly, too wet to support agriculture. But Northfield Township has been blessed with an abundant amount of prime farmland with fertile soil, rain, and a long growing season. Other places don't have it so easy. California farmers are depleting their aquifers to grow much of our fruits and vegetables. But in Northfield Township, you just plant a seed and it grows. However, in this country blessed with seemingly endless farmland, farmland is shrinking. Midwest grain fields, Florida orange groves, and California vegetable farms are routinely paved for roads and subdivisions. At the local level, it may not look like a problem, but the national statistics are staggering. According to the Farmland Information Center, nearly an acre of U.S. agricultural land is converted to other uses per minute. In other words, during this meeting, we'll lose about 100 acres of farmland in this country. And ladies and gentlemen, by Christmas, an area the size of our township. In this age of homeland security, we must also be concerned about food security. I bought this bottle of apple juice here today. The label says this juice is made from concentrate of apples grown in 10 different countries on 4 continents: Argentina, Austria, Brazil, Chile, China, Germany, Hungary, Italy, Turkey, and oh, by the way, the US. A bottle of juice made from fruit we can, and I do, grow in our own backyard should not be a geography lesson. In this time of shrinking energy resources and rising costs, we must think locally. Washtenaw cider tastes much better anyway. Don't be just short-term planners. Be visionaries, like those who created New York Central Park in 1844. With an ever-growing urban area within one, envision an oasis, Northfield Township, with abundant prime farmland. Envision land intensively cultivated, producing vegetables, fruit, and nuts for local consumption. Envision fruit-filled orchards used for outdoor recreation in the fall. Envision greenhouses that extend the growing season far into the cold months. Envision carefully managed forests for soil, water, and wildlife conservation, as well as recreation and timber production. Envision small businesses in township areas zoned for industry using these crops in their products. Envision downtown Whitmore Lake as a destination with restaurants filled with diners eating local foods, watching sunsets over the lake from outdoor patios and wide windows. Envision retail businesses those giant diners shop in after their meal. Envision an industry that creates jobs and income for many, and food, a necessary resource for all. In short, envision preserving our prime farmland and forests as an opportunity for development without destruction. Exactly what we, the residents of this township, have clearly cited as our top priorities in the last 2 surveys and written in our carefully crafted master plan: open space, recreation, and downtown development. What we don't want is a subdivision with hundreds of homes. We have clearly indicated that for the past 20 years, and we don't need to again. Think globally, act locally. Be visionaries. Tell Biltmore to go back home. Let us who call Northfield Township home go back to our wonderful master plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers? Yes.
I'd never pass up an actual audience. My name's Craig Warburton. I live at 450 West Joy Road. In the last few meetings, I have come and spoken about transparency and the seeming lack thereof emanating from the Planning Commission into this austere body. You fine people. I'm not sure everybody here knows that this is a done deal. You've already approved the assessment roll, correct? I know you won't answer me, but it's a little disheartening to see the full concentration and reflection on all the things people might say is going to happen between 2 items on the agenda, and about a snowball's chance that that's not going to happen as it's written out. The master plan we have is incredibly good. It's incredibly comprehensive. It was very well thought out. It's incredibly accurate. It has in it policies for sewer extensions. It has 4 points. They're on page 20. I would only quote 2 of them. Number 4, municipal sewers shouldn't be extended beyond areas for medium density residential. That seems like a pretty complete statement. I don't think that involves the industrial areas down Whitmore Lake Road. And the township shall undertake studies to determine the potential use and probable ability of the township to service those needs. And albeit there's been conversation since March about those exact topics, you've authorized $23,500 to do an engineering study for an expansion tank that's not yet approved. Our township engineer at one meeting said this effluent from the SAD is going to be inconsequential. And then 2 weeks later pointed out that if North Territorial and Green Oak build out as planned, that plant is 100,000 gallons over capacity. You know, there's something very mysterious about the fact that this project came and it sat and sat and sat until this weird cloud of events came up, and suddenly it's important to get a sewer down Whitmore Lake Road. I wonder why that could be. I'll leave all the rest of my accusations and assumptions at home. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate all you fine people and the wonderful service you give this township.
Thank you. Our next speaker?
Hi, David Gordon, Helena Road, Ann Arbor, Northfield Township. I'm not going to talk about the sewer extension at the moment. I just want to talk about this yellow postcard. I was very glad to see that it did get sent out by the clerk. It's great. That's why I think many of the people are here. The reason these postcards need to go out for borrowing above $250,000 is because when I was serving on the board, as well as several other people who are members of the Northfield Neighbors, we passed an ordinance requiring that a postcard be sent out to inform taxpayers if they're about to be hit with if the township's going to go out and borrow some money. I thought it was a great idea, especially since the second floor of this building and all the cost overages here were done without the public really knowing what was going on. My problem is that the ordinance that we adopted about borrowing and noticing the public says that the card should be reasonably clear and unambiguous. The first sentence here is 135 words long, and yet fails to say where the sewer system is. And it uses language that I think might be Old English in areas. Certainly a lot more legalese than what we could use if we really want to inform people what's going on. So I would hope that the next time you go to borrow money that we improve the communication a little bit so there's fewer questions. But thank you for sending out the postcard, and I'm looking forward to tonight's meeting. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? All right, let's move on to our core. Okay. And keep in mind, we are reserving time if you want to talk about the sewer district.
Okay. I have to pick up my daughter from a basketball game at the Whitmore Lake Middle School after this, so I'm going to talk about it now. My name is Susan Schenk. I live at 600 West Joy Road. I've lived there for 13 years now. We've invested a significant amount of money into the home we live in and moving another house to that property. Significant for this township. A lot of people in that neighborhood invest significant amounts into that neighborhood because we love it there. We love it the way it is. We feel we are in the lap of luxury in that neighborhood. When I first came here a long time ago, I got involved in politics right away. And I was told by a trustee that the township had to develop. Some of you may remember I was one of the leaders of the fight against the development on the Leland property. I was told by one of the trustees that the township had to develop because it had overspent on bringing the sewer down to North Territorial. And so we needed that development to help pay for that sewer. That land isn't developed yet, right? So it seems like there was a trajectory that hasn't been completed yet. The businesses that are south of North Territorial don't need a sewer extension. I looked carefully. They're all the kinds of places where just not a lot of people work at one time or go at one time, but they're really great businesses. I do actually spend money at quite a few of them. The people in this township want that area to stay rural. If you bring the sewer down, and I think you guys know this, and I think the people on the Planning Commission know this too, you're basically trying to force development. Some of the people who live there can't afford to pay the assessment. That land will have to be split up at some point. The businesses, if they try to sell their businesses, they're going to have to split them up or make them into something a lot bigger, probably something that a small business owner can't afford. These are all small businesses in that stretch. I love this place. So when I come in here and I say I don't want it to develop, I say that because I love this place. Focus on developing around Whitmore Lake. I will support you. I will be your ally. And David Gordon has a following. I have a following. We will be your allies, but, sorry, David, talk for David, but we'll be your allies, but focus the development where the development belongs, not make more suburban sprawl. Everybody except for some of the people on this board and planning commission know that it doesn't work. It costs communities money, it ruins the quality of life, and it's not worth all the effort and strife that's being created to push it through. And maybe you can do it procedurally, but we're going to fight you every step of the way. We want this place to stay the beautiful, wonderful community that it is because we love it. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker.
Mike McCollum, 9050 Posey Drive. Regarding the development, the key issues for me are the density proposed is 4 houses per acre. That creates a total change to the environment of that end of town, but also, even more importantly, we already have an issue trying to get to Ann Arbor and back. If there's ever a traffic issue on 23, our only other choice is generally Whitmore Lake Road. If we put a lot more cars on that road, are we going to be able to get to and from work in a reasonable length of time? I don't think so. The other issue is, if a builder is going to come in and do a dense development, it should be entirely on him to pay for the sewer project. It should not impact the residents who are already here, most of which do not even want the development. Thank you.
Come on up.
Sorry about my phone. Ralph Hayward, 1159 8 Mile.
Can you please,
1159 8 Mile Road, Whitmore Lake.
Can you repeat your name?
Ralph Hayward.
And whoever has the phone, please turn it off.
That's me. I'm so sorry. I don't know who's calling me because I never get calls. Oh, it's my cousin. I've lived out here 35 years. I bought my property. Ralph Hayward. I bought my property 35 years ago. I've lived out here, and I've seen there've been no sales in my property.
Sir, can you address the board, please?
You need to address that.
Yet my property taxes zoom every year. And I have no idea. I'll deal with that, and I'll get a private assessment, but I have no idea why my property taxes over the last 35 years just continue to grow with no changes. The thing I wanted to go back to is two gentlemen that spoke ago. In this postcard we got, how many people here know what ad valorem taxes are? Very good. Did you look it up, or you already knew from your Latin? Okay. Just for everyone else, it means tax based on property value and services.
Sir, can you please address the board?
My apology. I just find this card a bit deceptive. That's the reason I'm here. It should be just in layman terms, where everyone can access what's going on here. My biggest question is, in this district, quote district, and I know I've read through the whole thing, but if it goes to the general funds where we're not able to, whatever development is not able to pay for this, do the taxpayers like me that live out in 10 acres, do we pay for somebody's services if it overflows? I mean, let me try to clarify this. First budget obligation is the general funds. I mean, general funds, that's paid by all of us, is it not?
Sir, I have to remind you, it's not, we can't comment at this point. It's just an opportunity for you guys to talk.
Okay.
And
Well,
we limit you to 3 minutes,
I
okay?
guess I'm just saying my question is, if all the things that don't come through like fairy tales are the rest of us paying for the sewer in the district that we don't actually get the services? Thank you.
Great.
Sorry to be boring.
Thank you. Our next speaker.
Faith Wheeler, 371 Grove, Horseshoe Lake. I have a bunch of questions, but one of the things I'm wondering why, when we're talking about $800,000 to extend the sewer to Regal, I think that kind of money, since we could possibly be responsible if things go defunct with the businesses and they can't pay it and you have to divide down to get people that can afford a piece of property to afford that kind of taxation? Why wasn't this put up to the public to vote on it? I think $800,000 is a lot of money, and I think when we're all possibly involved in it, it should be considered. When you put this in, and then people start coming and wanting to buy a little piece of property or a little bit of property there, and we have to expand, because I understand that's pretty close, the sewer plant, then that's going to come back on us to help businesses. And I'm very much, as the one gentleman was saying, if business wants it, they should pay for it. And I understand that some of the business out there want it, and it's a lot of money, and then some houses out there we're probably going to lose because they can't afford it. And if taxes come back on us, little folks retired and way beyond retirement, and young folks trying to get a house and start in this community are going to be gone, just like they were gone when everything went down, because build it and they will come, and I was here. Build this building and they will come. Build that school and they will come. This is not full of anybody yet, and we're talking another $64,000 to improve the upstairs and a school that we have 400 and some kids in. I don't believe in building it and they will come. Let them come and then they can build it.
Thank you. Our next speaker.
My name's Andy Lakatos, and I'm new in the area from last year. I'm over in Wildwood at 9249 Lakewood Drive. And yes, it was very confusing, this letter. And I read it about 14 times. And I underlined, it says, for the purpose of paying the cost to establish, acquire, construction, install, equip a sanitary sewer system. Well, anytime land is to be developed, it's whoever buys it, whoever builds on it, the landowner, whoever it is that makes the money off of this, is the one that's responsible for taking care of all of the charges to expand the system. So if the system stops at wherever it stops, and then the property continues on, and that's where it's going to go, well, that's the builder and developer. That's not us. It's not us at all. And because down here it says that if you don't get enough money, then you're going to tax us. You're going to take it out of the general fund. We don't pay for that. That's not for us to be doing. So so that's about all I got to say, other than tap-in fees are where the biggest revenue is as far as the township is concerned. And you can charge anything you want on tap-in fees to cover any of the loss or the development. But if you haven't got customers, then there's no sense in developing it. And it shouldn't be up to the township to be developing it. It should be up to the responsibility of the developer working with the township to develop that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker.
Good evening. My name is Sherry Wagar. I live at 6431 Whitmore Lake Road, and I have a second parcel, 6475 Whitmore Lake Road. We are part of this sewer development, and I must say that right now we kind of feel like our back is up against the wall on this. It's really depressing when I was here a month ago, heard the information about the ordinance and the $200,000, and I don't think many of you on the board were aware of that fact, because then miraculously this little yellow postcard appeared before this meeting. I think this was kind of unfortunately a CYA measure, and now that everything has been brought to light, we need to talk more about these issues. I think as a township official, it is part of your responsibility to guide this township and its citizens with what you believe to be going in the right direction. But I think you cannot lead us properly if you are not being led, if you're being led by only the loudest voices, and you need to use your own voices. You need to do your own research. You need to be aware of what it is that you're voting on, because this is relating to people's lives and their livelihood. I'm just one of the little guys. I'm not one of the businesses down that road. Our property is zoned agricultural. This is going to cost us an exorbitant amount of money if we can even stay here. I've lived in this township for 30 years. This is probably going to, if this passes and goes through, it'll probably cost us everything, and we will have to move out of the township. We had asked, we've been to several meetings and asked to get someone to respond to us about our questions about whether or not we could be excluded from this, because we are agricultural, not light industrial. We have no way that we're going to benefit from this sewer development, and we've had our sewer assessed within the last, our sewer field assessed within the last couple of weeks, and it is found to be working and in perfect order. Last meeting when we were here, we had our lawyer here, and he even discussed with how this is unlawful for you to proceed with us for properties like ours because of the fact that we will not get the benefit ratio that is available to some of the more commercial properties. So it comes down to this. Would I be able to recommend Northfield Township to someone in the future to come and live here, to purchase property in this area? I believe that is basically up to you. The response, my response would be how you handle this and how it looks like things are going to be handled in the future. And you must listen to all of its citizens, not just those citizens that want to thoroughly expand this area. And you need to look at the building plan and things that have already been paid for, and why are we looking at doing additional expansion when it really, really is not beneficial to all the people in those areas. And, oh, by the way, we've received, as probably everybody in this area has, our winter taxes for this year, and we've already been charged an additional $3,500 on our winter taxes for the Whitmore Lake development for the sewer. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Good evening, Kitty Burkhart, 6187 Aller Road. I've heard this group call Northfield Neighbors a special interest group. That is absolutely untrue. Northfield Neighbors has been around since the 1980s, early 80s. Northfield Neighbors version 1 was what helped get the zoning on their North Territorial for smart growth. We hired an attorney named Clan Crawford, who was very well known and was a professor at the university, to get zoning improved in Northfield, to get master plans developed using all of the people in the township, not special interest groups. I take offense at hearing Northfield Neighbors called a special interest group. Northfield Neighbors has been around for over 30 years, and they are trying to improve Northfield Township. They are trying to have smart growth in Northfield Township, not box stores, not thousands of subdivisions that have traffic and don't make any money for the township, cost the township money. I think you people ought to do a little bit of history and look at what the township Northfield Neighbors have done for this township in the last 35 years. I think you should think before you speak. I think you should represent the majority of the township residents, not your special interests. The township Northfield Neighbors and the residents of this township have been very consistent in what they want and what they have said they want for the last 35 years or more. They want smart growth. They want good zoning ordinances that can be defended. They want the residents involved. They don't want things done behind closed doors without open meetings. They want input from the residents, all of the residents, not just a couple of them. I think you are elected to represent the majority of the residents of Northfield Township. You ought to consider that, and you ought to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker.
My name is Linda Strasbaugh. I live at 3990 North Territorial Road. I am a fervent Tea Party member, and I think what this is all saying, we're all saying is we're taxed enough already.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Laura Voitis, and I live at 6235 Hellner Road. I've been fortunate to live in this community for more than 20 years, and I consider myself extremely fortunate, especially in the fact that I have two extremely educated parents who've taken the time to educate me on the community that I live in and the things that have happened in this community since I've been living here. That being said, we received a postcard recently, and I have to admit, for someone who I consider myself educated, I have a master's degree, I work in a professional setting, it was very difficult for me to understand some of the language and what was meant to come across in this postcard. From that, I gathered that it's going to be talking about the special assessment sewer district and how that would work with our businesses and how that would potentially benefit them and benefit the community as a whole. Now, if that's really true, then I believe that it should be that development or those businesses that should pay for that. That's irrespective of how I feel about the development. But if that's going to be put in place and they're going to be the ones that benefit, they should be accountable. And I haven't seen anything that's going to hold them accountable. What I did see in the event that they're not able to pay it, that it's going to be on the taxpayers. And I think that that's very difficult to gather from that. And I don't think it was your intention to deceive, and I hope that it was, and I hope it was your effort to educate the public as part of that ordinance 0805, and to really engage with the public on what is really best and what they understand. And I don't say that to punish the businesses, but I certainly don't think you want to punish the citizens either. So I believe that it is my responsibility as an informed citizen in the area that I come to you, I share with you how I interpreted that postcard, let you know that it wasn't very clear to me, and maybe there are some other mechanisms, I don't know, either public forum, which what we're doing here tonight, or other ways to educate the public and see if that's really what they want. In addition, from the woman who just spoke earlier, who spoke that her family would have to leave this community if this went through. Everything that my understanding of what's been said about development since I've lived here would be to benefit the citizens that live here, benefit our surrounding communities. And if by development we're having people that live here and who have enjoyed this community for several years, if that means they have to leave, I don't really think development is something that we want. Now maybe I'm misinformed on that, but I think that development in any form, smart development, should really benefit those that are here and should want us to invite people here. And if we can't even promote our own community, then I think that we have an issue and that this is an opportunity for all of us to work together for what is right for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers? All right. Let's get to the rest of the agenda before we get, our other things we need to take care of before going on to the agenda items. Correspondence and announcements. Do we have anything in addition to, oh, I'm sorry.
Excuse me, please. I wish to speak.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Yeah, I was at the back.
Go right ahead.
My name is Julia Henshaw. I live at 4681 6 Mile Road. I've lived here for 32 years, I believe. When I first moved here from Detroit, not because I tried to get away from Detroit, but because I wanted horses. I also was will call me an artist. I did sketches, watercolors, things like that. So bought the property on 6 Mile, looked at the map, said, look, there's this really big lake over there. So I, packed up my pencils and my watercolors and drove over to Whitmore Lake, looking for the park, looking for a place to walk, looking for somewhere to sit, looking for an even attractive restaurant. And guess what? There wasn't anything. And I totally agree with everything I think that's been said before about the totally confusing yellow postcard, the bad idea of us paying for these businesses to have a sewer. But I would love to see you all of us work towards improving Whitmore Lake. And I know Sue Shink said she was going to, you know, rally around and help, and I would be happy to rally around and help. I do spend money. I mostly eat out in South Lyon because I live over there, but I'm quite close to here. And I would really like, genuinely, to see something good happen with Whitmore Lake. And that's really the spin I wanted to put on it. Thank you.
All right, did I miss anyone else? Okay, sorry about that. All right, correspondence and announcements. Do we have anything in addition to what we have, Howard?
Yeah, one quick item. Living Water has withdrawn their proposal for 75 Barker. And then the other thing I wanted to say to everyone in the audience is that I will be making a statement of mostly prepared remarks, but some things that I've just jotted down recently to address many of the questions that you all brought up. So please just be patient for one more moment, and I think that you will all be the benefit of some very good information for tonight.
Great, thank you. So we need to go over our department head reports before we get on to our agenda items. And we have a full crowd here, obviously, so we'll try to make it short. I will start with Bill Wagner, who is doing the police and fire tonight. Does anyone have any questions for him on his reports? No?
And I have no action items.
All right, thank you. Let me see, we've got... Yep, Tim's not here. Okay, Tammy, you got anything that you'd like to add in addition to your report?
Just a reminder that we have Dinner with Santa next Tuesday night from 5 to 7:30, and a big thank you to Kiwanis for providing the funds for the reindeer that will be with us. One of Santa's reindeer will be with us for the entire event. So we're excited about that. So I hope everybody will join us.
Great. It was a huge success last year, wasn't it? Great. All right. Tim is not here, so if anyone had any questions for him, just contact him direct. Parks and Rec report, anything to report, Tracy?
Nothing that's not in the manager's report.
Okay. Kathy, our treasurer, anything? All right. Let me see. CBA, you got anything?
We did not have a meeting last month, so there's nothing to report.
Okay, great. Janet, you got anything from the Planning Commission?
The Planning Commission met December 2nd. After much discussion on updating and amending the Planning Commission bylaws, they have been approved and are scheduled for a public hearing, along with the removal of the 25% floor area limitation on manufacturing as an accessory use in the RTM zoning district as approved by the Planning Commission. And if I may just make a quick comment to some of the things that I heard. The Planning Commission also passed 5-2 made a motion to direct Biltmore to send a proposal for development that was consistent with the current master planning. So in case we're not looking for anything else from them right now, if anything.
All right.
And there's been no correspondence.
Can you explain that a little bit better? Because I think people are looking at each other. So the current master plan says 5 acres, right?
We've asked them if they're interested to send something consistent with that zoning.
Okay, thank you.
And there has been no correspondence from Biltmore.
All right, takes us to our manager's report. Howard, do you have anything?
I have nothing. I'll have a list of, as I said, prepared remarks.
All right, anyone have questions for Howard before we move on? All right. Okay, that takes us on to our first agenda item, which is the time that is reserved for the public comment regarding the township intent to issue bonds for the Whitmore Lake Road Special Assessment District. This is Howard, our township manager.
First, I want to make sure everybody can hear me. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this. I'm going to go slowly. I'm going to make a lot of emphasis so that you all have the factual information before you leave here tonight, okay? There are some things that I heard from the comments. One is Biltmore. I'm going to address that. The other is taxes. I'm going to address that. The third is development. I'm going to address that. Okay? So those are key points at which I'm going to address in my prepared remarks. As you may be aware, the Township Board is deliberating tonight on the authorization of the sale of bonds to fund a sewer district on Whitmore Lake Road, south of North Territorial, to roughly the end of Regal Recycling, or actually the beginning of Regal Recycling's property. Okay? A number of misconceptions and misinformation has traveled throughout Northfield Township. Let me begin with a few facts that hopefully will clarify your questions. Number one, as Mr. Gordon indicated, the reason why you received a yellow postcard is because an ordinance was passed in 2008 asking for notice to taxpayers for debt issuance greater than $250,000. The postcard was written by legal counsel in order to ensure that we were very clear. I understand that a lot of folks didn't understand the language, but that we complied with the ordinance in very precise language. Now, I totally get that it didn't come across as understanding from a layperson's perspective, and that is our takeaway, that we will make sure that if anything like this happens in the future, we have learned from this experience. There's no question, I get it, I've heard it from multiple people, that that the language in the postcard was not easy to understand. I hear that, I take that in, we will learn from this experience moving forward. Number two, and they're not exactly in numerical order anymore because I've added a bunch of comments. Number two, the Whitmore Lake Sewer Assessment District was petitioned by the businesses and residents within the district. Almost every single resident and business in the district filed a petition with not this board, but the previous board, to create this sewer assessment district. I want to repeat, nearly every business in the district and every resident signed a petition to create this sewer assessment district. Let me go through the list. It was prior to this board. Okay? Number two, this district is not intended for Biltmore development. I repeat, this district has nothing to do with Biltmore development. The pipe is sized only for the businesses in this district. And for those of you who have a knowledge of engineering, this is a 3-inch forced main, not a gravity sewer. It is not a large sewer pipe. It only has the capacity for these businesses and these properties and for their development, not development further south. Now, I'm going to stay tonight as long as everyone is in this audience for any questions after the meeting. You can call me at the office to get clarification and the factual information related to this district. My office is open. You can call and leave a message. I will gladly talk with you. The payment of the bonds will be through funds raised from the special assessment by the properties in this district, not residents outside of the district. If the special assessment is not paid, the special assessment is considered a lien on the property. I repeat, the special assessment will be paid by the residents and businesses in this district, not the rest of the taxpayers. And if not paid, there will be a lien on both the property and the improvements within the district for the individuals or businesses who did not pay the special assessment. Let me get through my remarks, please. Let me get through my remarks. Let me get through my remarks, sir, please. Okay? If only if a property defaults, only if a property defaults, and the value of the lien is greater than the value of the property and the improvements on the property, will there be any obligation borne by the rest of the taxpayers? That likelihood is very, very low. This is not a special assessment district that is speculative in nature. This is completely different than the special assessment district that was done in Sylvan Township, which some of you may know about. There is development on these properties, and there is buildings on these properties, and those buildings and assets of those properties are greater than the lien of the special assessment. Given that there are over 20 properties, I believe if I count correctly, I think there are 24 properties, the impact to the general fund is minuscule as it relates to any taxpayer obligation. There will be no increase of taxes for this special assessment district. The existing general fund would support any delinquencies that may exist, and those are highly, highly unlikely that it would get to that point. Because again, it is paid by the businesses in the district. There is a lien on those properties and a lien on the improvements of those properties. As I've repeated, it is highly unlikely that taxpayers outside of the district will be responsible for any of the payments. And I may add that in Michigan, almost all sewer districts created are done through special assessments in one way or another. That's the way the sewers were created at North Territorial, and that's the way many of the sewer districts were created in Northfield Township, and for that matter, across the rest of the state. Financial advisors and myself, who've been doing this for about 13 years now, and our financial advisor firm, Brzezinski & Associates, has been doing it collectively for over 50 years, has never, ever, ever seen a bond that was authorized by a municipal entity that did not have the full faith and credit backing of a general fund. Such a bond does not exist. Okay? It doesn't exist. It wouldn't be able to be sold on the marketplace. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Hold your thoughts, please. Hold your questions, because we've heard a lot of misinformation and a lot of misconceptions. This is not an additional tax on the residents. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the Biltmore issue. I want to repeat, this is not about development in the ag areas. Okay? This district cannot support massive subdivisions further south. It wasn't designed for it. It is designed for the properties in this district. I understand that you all are passionate about this issue. I hear the passion. I hear the comments. This board hears the passion. The board hears the comments. The Planning Commission hears the passion. The Planning Commission hears the comments. Number one, the Planning Commission recently voted 5-2 to essentially say to Biltmore, if you want to do anything in Northfield Township, conform with the existing master plan. I don't know how many of you know that, but that's fact. Okay? Number two, this sewer district is not about the preservation or not the preservation of farmland. I understand that that is an issue here, and that another issue is the preservation of open space. This sewer district has nothing to do with that. This sewer district is a result of existing businesses in the area saying that they wanted access to sewers in order to be able to develop on their property the way existing zoning and the way existing master planning allows. The vast majority of this district is master plan mixed use, as you see on the master plan. In fact, the entire district is master planned mixed use, which allows for commercial, residential, various types of development. Much of it is zoned industrial. I don't disagree with the lady in the audience that some of it is an agricultural zoning. I'm not going to address every particular property owner and interest in the district, whether they agree or not. I will tell you that from our perspective, my perspective, the vast majority, not majority, the vast majority of businesses and property owners in this district are in favor of the expansion of the sewers. Again, there's a lot of passion, and that's a good thing. There's a lot of passion for how to develop, where to develop, what to develop. But this district is not related to that conversation. The timing, yes, it seems suspect. I don't disagree with that. But we have repeatedly in meetings said that this district has nothing to do with Biltmore. And for some reason, that message is not getting out to the community. Should I take some questions? Sure. David.
I have a comment. I made my comments prior to the portion of public comment that was to address this issue.
Certainly.
Howard, can you give him the mic, because people at home can't hear him?
I made my comments about farmland at the portion of the public commentary that was to not talk about this particular issue. The Biltmore issue is still here. They just got an extension for 6 months on the properties. It's not going away. And that vote that he mentioned about the Planning Commission, because people like yourselves sat here and said, look, we don't want another survey. They saw the handwriting on the wall. There wasn't going to be another survey. Didn't know there was going to be a survey? How many of you didn't know that? They're trying to do another survey. They're making their own wording about it. And there are people stand up and talked against it, and we stopped them. And that's why they had the vote that they had to stick with the master plan. They didn't want to, but we made them do it. Keep coming out to these meetings. Thank you, people. And my question is, can I make a comment? So thank you.
Just one quick question. As a backup, the general fund was mentioned as taking care of the deal. Now, is it the general fund, us taxpayers? Isn't that where the general fund comes from?
Yes. There is no municipal bond, any municipal debt that includes the Northfield, that includes the North Territorial Sewer Assessment District, that includes any debt that is issued by the township. There is no municipal debt that does not have a limited backing of the full faith and credit of the township's general fund. Such a debt doesn't exist.
What do you mean by limited?
Would you speak to that?
Limited tax means
Yeah, good evening. My name is Ryan Benzinski. I'm with Benzinski & Company, and we've been retained by the township to provide certain financial advice so that when or if these bonds are issued, that the cash flows are sufficient to repay the debt on the bonds, and that the bonds are issued so that hopefully the township gets the lowest possible borrowing costs. The township's legal or bond counsel that is assisted with all these special assessment proceedings is not able to be here tonight, and since any time a bond is to be issued, it has to be authorized by the formal governing body, which is the resolution they have in front of them. I've been asked to fill in for the bond counsel. I can't give any legal advice, but to answer your question, limited tax, full faith, and credit means that the rights and remedies of the bondholders are subject to only the general fund. If you had a bond issue that was voted and approved by the public, which most school bonds are, that means that you can tax any amount necessary to cover the debt service on the bonds. Limited tax means that bondholders only have the rights and remedies to the general fund and any revenues that are available from operating funds such as what's under the constitutional millage requirement. And I believe the township's levying at their max. So the difference is having no limit as to how much you can levy to pay the debt versus constitutional limitations.
I want to repeat, because there's a lot of legalese in that, and there's a lot of language that may not come across. I want to repeat, it is highly, highly, highly unlikely that it gets to the point where the general fund has to step in and rescue the district. Even if that, I see you, Craig. I see you, sir. Even if that were the case, okay, the township's general fund is $1.2 million. Okay? $1.2 million. If there's a default on one of those properties, it would be a minuscule impact to that general fund. The average assessment is $40,000. There would be no increase in taxes to cover that deficit. Okay? This is not speculative. It's not like Sylvan Township that went out and put out sewers for one developer on completely vacant land. That's not what this is. Okay? That's a different kind of special assessment district that happened. This is not considered a risky expansion of infrastructure. Craig, you had your hand up.
I'll just speak up. I was curious about the date of the petitions for the special assessment. How long ago really was that? I appreciated that you noted the curious appearance of the time frame. Why did you use the word essentially when you referred to tell them Biltmore they can't build here? That's not categorically, that's not absolutely, that's...
Craig, you know as well as I do, you've been to countless meetings of the Planning Commission. You're asking a question you know the answer to. I do not sit on the Planning Commission. I do not make the votes. I do not sit on the board. The Planning Commission has made a recommendation to Biltmore, has sent a letter to Biltmore, 5-2, and even the individuals probably that voted against it, probably if you were to look at the individuals, it was potentially for procedural reasons to say, if you want to be in Northfield Township, conform with the existing master plan. Now you all determine what that means. You make your own judgment at what the Planning Commission said. The gentleman in the jacket.
Do you live in this township?
I do. I've lived here for over a year and a half, almost 2 years now. This is not about me. Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
So,
sir?
use your words, this is highly, highly, highly unlikely that you will ever pay for this.
Sir, this is not about me, and we're not getting into personal attacks. No, it is not.
You lied to me before down there.
Sir, this is not about me, and we're not getting into personal attacks. Thank you, Mary.
My question is either for you, Howard, or for the Vincinski firm. I understand that that clause is necessary, and that's in any kind of similar thing with this bond issue and similar to this. In similar plans, is there any other kind of accountability measure? Because there have been a number of turnover in the businesses, and I understand the issues with the lien and other things. But similar things to this, is there any other way to hold these businesses accountable, is my question.
Other than the lien on the property, no. But let me explain to you what a lien on a property is. A lien on a property is a legal mechanism of which the township has to go after the assets of the property and the businesses. We've never had a reason to, well, I shouldn't say we've never. Brad, you would know the answer to that, but my assumption is we've never had a reason to call on a lien. If you don't pay your sewer bills, okay, it's completely a different issue. And I don't want to taint the conversation with issues, Mike, that are completely apples and oranges. Every time, I can't. Every time you don't pay your sewer bill, after a certain period of time, that sewer bill becomes a lien on your taxes. Those sewer back payments are collected, and if you don't pay your taxes, you know what happens. That's what ends up occurring. It's a lien on the property. It's a legal mechanism at which to retain the existing assets that are needed to pay off the assessment.
You're saying that we've implemented with some of these businesses, apparently this delinquent list, or what is the distinction?
The delinquent list has nothing to do with this district. I'll explain what the delinquent list is. A number of years ago, previous boards, and I want to be really, really cautious because this is not what this conversation tonight is about. We can have this conversation at a different date if we want. A number of boards ago, there was a treasurer that was in place that was not collecting personal property taxes. The issue has been addressed, and Kathy Braun, who is our current treasurer, to her credit, has vigorously gone after the businesses that have not paid personal property taxes within the statute of limitations at which we can do that. Now, I want to be clear. Hold on a second. 6 years. I want to be clear. The vast majority of properties on that list were not businesses. The vast majority of properties on that list were from the manufactured home park. And a lot of it has to do with a very significant misconception, and I don't agree with the law, but it is the law of the land, that porches and stoops and carports are taxed. And although I don't agree with it, and I won't speak for Kathy, but I don't think she likes it all that much either, it's the law of the land and we're complying. The vast majority of that list was related to the manufactured home park. And yes, there were businesses on that list that got away without paying personal property tax. That is not in relationship to this board, and is not in relationship with Kathy. This board has vigorously gone after businesses that we can go after for back payment of personal property taxes. And those issues have absolutely nothing to do with this district, and they are not related even to a lien. They're completely apples and oranges. Thank you. Personal property and real property. Real property is property on your home, on essentially buildings that you own. Personal property in Michigan, there's really no residential personal property for the most part. There's business personal property. If you're a small business owner, and again, I don't agree with these kind of tax structures, but they existed in Michigan. If you're a small business owner, for example, a doctor, you're going to pay taxes on the computers that you have in your office. You're going to pay taxes on the imaging software and materials that you have. Now, recently, the state has passed a small business exemption on personal property, and if you're under 70 or 80,000, 80? If you're under $80,000 of total valuation of personal property, you're exempt. Unfortunately, in 1995, there was a change in the law, and that change in the law created personal property taxes on the manufactured homes. And Northfield Township is not the only community that has a very difficult time collecting personal property taxes for manufactured homes. A lot of communities do.
We continue to struggle with it, but we are doing much better than in the past. Other questions? Yes, sir.
How big a line did you say is going in?
It is a 3-inch forced main.
What happens when that isn't enough to service that area? And
We
can that
believe-
district be combined with other districts?
We believe that it is enough to service the area. In fact, we think that within the existing REUs of the district, there's about 1.5 REUs for every acre in that district. And then there's potentially a little bit of extra capacity just in case. Now, I want to address another issue that was brought up, which is the sewer capacity in general. You've all heard about the sewer capacity issues. I want to again address misconceptions and misinformation that exists in this community. Number one, we have a sewer district or a sewer plant that is 1.1 million gallons. We currently use 650,000 gallons of capacity. Our existing sewer plant is about 50% utilized. Now, you've heard a lot of information out in the community, online, through various folks, your neighbors, whatever the case, that we're tapped out. And there's a way in which that is the case, and I'm going to explain it here tonight. If you look at every community in the state of Michigan, no one builds a sewer treatment plant to say we have 36 square miles, and we'll build a sewer plant for every possible development that exists within the zoning of that 36 square miles. You'd build a sewer plant that'd be bigger than the city of Chicago. You don't build sewer plants for 50 years in the future. You build sewer plants to accommodate the capacity that you have today, and you manage the capacity over time. Dale is in the audience, and Dale and I know each other quite well. Is that okay if I speak about you, Dale? Dale and I don't always agree. We have good conversations over the years. Dale sits on a sewer board for Livingston County. They have the exact same issue. When you add up all of the existing commitments that the township has provided to other districts, yes, they theoretically add up to more than our capacity. Those districts might not build out for 50 years. If every community in the state of Michigan added up all the existing zoning that they had within a sewer district, no one would have any capacity. This is a district, the sewer plant capacity is 1.1 million gallons. We currently use 650,000. We're at 50% capacity, folks. Yes, we have some work to do. Yes, we have some studying to do. This board has diligently taken on that and not said we're going to kick the can down the road. We're going to address the issues today. I know it comes out into the community and maybe we don't do a very good job. Maybe we have to do a better job of communicating. But I know it gets out there and the message is, well, here goes the board again. We're expanding the capacity. We're not expanding the capacity. We're dealing with the existing issues and understanding the system as it exists today. Hold on, Faith. The equalization basin should have been built 10 years ago. The equalization basin, and Brian, wherever you are in the room, please correct me if I'm wrong, the equalization basin is mostly related to the fact that in the spring weather, we have a peak flow. It rains a lot. No matter what we do, you're going to get infiltration in the lines. Every sewer district in America has it. It rains, the peak goes up. We have to address that issue with essentially a storage tank. The equalization basin is not about expansion and new development. It's to deal with the issues that we have today. Okay? We're not kicking the can down the road, guys. This board isn't going to do it. They've made that clear. And they've made it clear that they're going to understand their infrastructure, they're going to understand their issues, and they're going to effectively deal with it. You already had a question. Let other folks ask questions. Mike, yes, sir, in the vest. Yeah, well, you haven't asked a question yet, sir.
Frank Schmidt, 1985 Spencer Road. My question is, you're going to cover this with a lien on the property.
Correct.
You have first position.
Do we have first position?
Come on, it's that simple.
I'm asking the legal counsel, sir. Give him a chance. Let's
He's
not.
the one I'm directing you to.
Okay, well, let's not be confrontational. Let's give the guy an opportunity. You don't. Okay. Okay. We'll get that answer.
Right, so the design of the program and the need for the program is probably correct. I don't know anything different. The question is who's going to be responsible?
As I said again.
Right. So now you have a lien, but you don't know you have first lien. So you don't know if you can actually collect any cash.
Sir, there are 3 special assessment districts in Northfield Township as it exists today.
Right. But
And they exist on North Territorial, they exist on 6 Mile, and they exist elsewhere.
Am I talking or are you talking?
Well, but
you're
you're...
asking a question and you listen. Come on.
Let him talk.
Once somebody there doesn't pay their taxes, where does that money come from? Does it come from, let's go grab it, that property and let's sell the stuff and we'll collect the money that way? It comes from the general fund first. That's why we're supporting this in this. But the problem is, when does it ever go back? We take the money out and it never goes back.
There is enough existing money in the general fund that there will never be an
Enough
impact.
existing money that we paid.
Yes, sir. There is no question about that.
So the question is, who's paying for the problem?
Sir, who's paying for the issue is the properties and the businesses in this district.
People who don't want it.
There's one person in the district out of 24.
They give her a break. Don't charge her.
She's in the middle of the district, sir. We're not going to... There's one property of 24 in the district that reserve their right to appeal and protest it.
Howard, can you let them know about the Michigan State Tribunal?
Yes, and for the individuals that do appeal, there is a process of which you can go through to reduce the assessment or remove the assessment. And that appeal is to the Michigan Tax Tribunal. And they are doing that. You go to the Michigan Tax Tribunal, and the Michigan Tax Tribunal says, no, that the assessment is disproportionate to the cost or the increase of the value of the property. And they reduce the assessments. Who would pay the difference? The general fund. What's 1.1 million divided by 260,000? The question is, how does this capacity, how does this district relate to the existing capacity of the plant? And so I'm going to answer that in mathematical terms here in a second. Can somebody divide 1.1 million by 260,000? 260. There's 4,230 REUs that, an REU is sort of a theoretical number. It's not a real number. It's a theoretical sort of basis. Again, if you want to talk more in detail about this, I'm happy to talk with you later. There's 4,300 REUs that are available from a 1.1 million gallon sewer plant. This district represents about 200 of them.
Okay. In that case,
200.
our commitment with Livingston County, is that for so many, that we would have to come up with, if they happen to have a need for it right now?
The commitment for Green Oak Township is roughly 200,000 gallons of capacity, and the commitment in the North Territorial Sewer Assessment District is roughly 400,000 gallons of capacity. As I've indicated multiple times tonight, you don't manage sewer plants by building for maximum capacity. You manage sewer plants by managing your capacity and your volume over time.
So my question is, then, if we take this much out of it for our, we don't have
Faith, we're asking questions that are highly unrealistic. You are 10 to 15 years at least away from even talking about a plant expansion. Absolutely. You have 600,000 gallons of unspent capacity. Okay? We are not talking about a plant expansion today. Okay? We are not doing that. We are talking about a small district that we have the capacity for with businesses and property owners in the district that have asked for it. Yes, sir, in the back.
We were talking about expansion over here right in this room. Didn't you guys hire a consultant to study our sewers? Didn't you say that on heavy days and heavy nights that full capacity?
We did hire a consultant to understand our capacity, and the recommendation was in heavy rains to build an equalization basin, which I addressed about 10 minutes ago. The equalization basin, sir, is not related to expansion, is related to dealing with the effluent that we have today. And the equalization basin was studied 10 years ago and should have been built prior. Yes, sir, in the back.
I just want to clear that up maybe a little, because when you say the 60% capacity...
What's that?
When you're talking about 60% capacity, right now without the basin, right now I believe it would say we're over capacity during high water tables, heavy rains. So just like making that clear, so when you say 60%, what kind of average is that?
You're getting into engineering and mathematical analysis that I'm not sure that I'm most qualified to answer. I will tell you that lots of plants in Michigan have peak flow time periods where their effluent rises above their permitted capacity. It is an absolute common thing to happen. Now, we do a very, very good job of dealing with that effluent during those high rain periods, and we almost never have to deal with bypassing the plant. Almost never. And when we do, it's clean. Now, we are not in any kind of issues with environmental agencies or with the state. This is a common thing about managing sewer in communities. This is not atypical, and the fact remains that Northfield Township's plant is roughly about 50% capacity. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to get this straight. You do not know if you will be personally.
I don't have the answer to that question. I'm not an attorney.
Howard, if I could step in, taxes are first lien position over any mortgage.
Okay, thank you. So, Madam Supervisor, who is a realtor in the community, indicated that there is first position.
Okay, so if you do have to go to the general fund, just say, however minute it may be, deplete that. Who refurbishes the general fund?
The taxpayers.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Can I make one statement? If a property owner delinquents on their taxes, it's almost the same thing. If a property owner delinquents on their property, say you don't pay your taxes, and the
You
county...
pay for it.
And the county has to go after it, you pay for it.
And you pay for when the property owner doesn't pay their sewer bill. The folks in the sewer plant pay for that.
Special assessment.
Exactly, it's a special assessment.
It's not the same, okay? It is not the same. You're depleting the general fund possibly. So you're all, you have us all here to tell us, well, we may not pay tomorrow, but we may pay 3 years from now, and we may pay. Mr. Fink is very, very familiar with the tax tribunal. He's half the residents in this township.
Actually, the lady in the green has been having her hand up for a while. Thank you.
What happens if this does not happen? What happens if it stops?
The businesses in the district don't get a sewer district that they've asked for. That's what it is. That's all it is.
So they will be status quo.
That's correct. Mr. Boyd?
We're being asked backwards alone. I think it's fair to know ahead of time how many of these businesses over the last 10 years have been delinquent in their taxes and have not paid their sewer bill, and what amount of money that amounted to.
Yes, sir. I don't have the answer, Mr. Voitis.
Howard, can I just say something about the personal property taxes? I'll answer it right now. Somebody's asking the question about personal property taxes for the business owners. When I was elected, personal property taxes had not been collected in this community for almost 20 years.
20 years, guys.
I would like to ask the other members of this audience who were on boards here why nothing was done, why it now comes to me. I came in, I have gone to court every single month collecting these taxes. I don't think there's one small business owner right now that owes taxes. Any personal property taxes owed are in the amounts of like $20, $50, $100 on the manufactured home people who really didn't even understand that they owed personal property taxes. That's an issue up for discussion all over the state of Michigan right now. Every business owner right now is up to date on their personal property taxes. I had to go to court and was put really my feet to the fire. I had to expunge over $400,000 that would have been our money, township money, because past boards sat here for almost 20 years and it never came up. I didn't see all these people coming to the meetings. I've been here 37 years. I didn't see anybody coming then and saying, why are you letting $400,000 slip away from you, board members? Why aren't you doing anything about this? It's done. It's cleaned up now. But that's what happened. That's why it existed, because past boards, who some of them were Northfield neighbors, and I have no objection to anybody's, political, what they believe in. But I'm just saying, the people here, some of them were on the boards that virtually ignored that.
David had a question.
Madam Treasurer, I wanted to compliment you for the job that you are doing collecting taxes. A week ago, we realized there was troubles with our treasurer, how the money was being handled, and we brought in a comptroller to actually get into the books because the treasurer was unable to even answer any simple questions. That comptroller gave us a lot of information, which we tried as hard as we could to get the treasurer then to go ahead and collect taxes. And we brought the attorney involved too, because then we were out of office.
Well, it didn't happen. It didn't happen. When I took office, anything beyond 6 years, statutorily uncollectible. So I had to go to court, I had to get that expunged. And so the comptroller, it's not his job to collect taxes. It's the treasurer. And the board, what the board needed to do at that point was discipline the treasurer or call for a recall. And there's an auditor that works for this township too that could have given you the numbers quite easily, not just the comptroller, because it's on the books. It's on the books.
Ma'am in the white and the gentleman in the red next.
I get it, this is going to happen, whatever. But on these 24 sections you got here, you see there's some residential zones.
It's master plan mixed use.
I can't make out the rules.
It's master plan mixed use.
Okay.
Okay, and much of this township is based on the master plan because oftentimes things are master planned and not rezoned accordingly. It's master planned all mixed use.
All mixed use.
All mixed use.
Okay, so of these, there's only 24 people that own these
24 parcels, I believe.
24 parcels, 24 people, right?
Not necessarily 24 people because some people own multiple parcels.
Right, who means they did the people and the businesses request?
Correct.
How much of this can,
How
much of those parcels can be developed into subdivisions, which I have no problem with, but my concern is, you guys just built a school here a few years ago, and you started putting in a bunch of houses. Well, as a kid, God love them, I have them. Is this school going to run out of space?
This isn't subdivision land.
That's not subdivision land.
You can decide for yourself if you drive up and down that land and say if you're going to build a subdivision on it. The properties themselves are not very deep, okay? They're not very large. What's that?
Is there a business in every one of those?
No, not every one.
Why would somebody who does not have a business, want to be paying for...
Because it's zoned, because it's either master planned mixed use, which is a commercial zoning, or it's zoned industrial, and commercial industrial uses want sewers in order to develop. It's mixed use zoning. It's not to say that no residential can be allowed there, but the pipe is only a 3-inch force main. There's only approximately 200 or roughly, how much? 200 and, how much? There's only 266 REUs in the district. REUs. It's called the residential equivalent unit. So one house is one REU. Yes. Again, man, the issue with the liens, I'm not an attorney, so I can't speak. If you're not paying your township tax, if you're not paying your township taxes, it goes to the county for sale, and the township eventually gets it back. All townships in the state of Michigan are made whole by the, well, I shouldn't say all townships in the state of Michigan. All townships and municipalities in Washtenaw County are made whole by the county. So we get 100% tax revenue whether you pay it or not, because eventually it goes on a tax sale and it gets recuperated. Yes, sir. Sure.
So I wanted to, you said at the beginning that you were there's a lot of false or misinformation, and you wanted to clarify that. Oh, by the way, my name is Pat Piso. I live at 8020 Kearney. I have lived in the area for over 20 years. So the one question I had, and I guess this kind of goes to Angela Westover. I don't know who my name really is. So when I received this in the mail, again, I kind of know what it was saying. So my understanding is, though, you didn't write this?
I did not.
You did not write that. So your name appears, so some of this information, when I see something written and I see a name underneath it, shouldn't I assume that person wrote it?
Guys,
misinformation that's published or the misinformation?
I'm not talking about the misinformation on the postcard. We have already learned the lesson that the next time this happens and we send a postcard, we need to do a better job of the language. That language was drafted by an attorney, and that language was recommended to be sent by an attorney in order to respond to the ordinance that was on the books. We should not place blame for Ms. Westover. She was advised by counsel in order to write a postcard in a particular way, and she did that. If you were a business owner or if you were a political official, you would also go with the advice of your consultants and counsel. We agree, though, okay, that the next time this happens, that the postcard needs to be more clear. A lot of the misinformation that we're talking about is related to development further south and how this impacts with taxes and impacts of the residents.
Well, you started the conversation by trying to be combative, just trying to answer questions.
Sure, no, this is a good dialogue.
So you said that there was some misinformation. So again, when I read it, I thought, well, Angela wrote this. I assumed that there were probably some attorneys involved. Well, my question is, before this sent out, Angela, you read this?
I did.
You read it. And was your opinion that, oh yeah, this is Northfield Township, people are raising their share, they'll get this all the way? Is that your assessment, or is your assessment this is like a legalese thing?
I mean, I kind of feel we are being released that. But I'll answer.
Well, I'm not making you mad, but I'll give you an example.
Okay.
So it reminds me of the answer that you gave of, well, we're not going to do this again. When I was 16 years old, me and my friend took his parents, the Chevy Impala, into city forest, 5 miles, a lot of trails. We tried to take the thing up the sand hill, we got it stuck. Then it turned dark, we were walking out of the woods, then we called his father. His father came out pretty mad and said, where the hell's your car? And we looked at each other and we said, probably should have, remember who we left the car. So we won't do that again, or we won't take the car in the woods again. So I guess the answer is, you sent this out, I just wanted to know the answer of, you really think they sent this out knowing it'd be confusing, or they sent it out they thought it would be not confusing?
No, there was no intent to confuse anyone. I will say that it was signed and sent out at the advice of legal counsel.
Because the statement that was made was, the
I got you, Ed. I see you back there.
So, being that I'm not a sewer expert, you said, Howard, that it's going to be a low-pressure force main.
Correct.
So the language on the yellow card says that the bond, the special assessment, is for the purpose of gravity sewer collection lines and low-pressure force main.
Correct.
Can you explain?
Most certainly can.
Okay, good.
Is that it? Did I cut you off? I cut you off, but was there anything else?
No.
Okay, so let's go over the district. So let's talk about the specifics of the district. Currently, okay, if somebody wants to hook up to the sewers in the vicinity of this area, they have a few options. One, the sewer ends right here on North Territorial, roughly a bit east of Whitmore Lake Road. This is a 12-inch, an existing, I believe, 12-inch gravity line. Okay? So right here at this black dot. In addition, there's also a gravity line that runs parallel to US 23, which was put in for the, well, which I don't know when it was put in or why it was put in. That was before my time. But it's the way in which Tractor Supply and Nowatzki and one of the businesses is currently connected in this section right here. Okay? So there's a 12-inch gravity sewer here. It's 12-inch, right, Brian? And there's a 12-inch sewer on North Territorial, and then there's also some existing sewer that goes back into this location. This district was built, in 2000, around the time when the development previously that had a significant amount of controversy came in. Okay, that's about when that sewer was put in place, 1999. Okay. The design of the district basically goes from this gravity line, and it goes gravity across one of the properties in the district to roughly the middle of Whitmore Lake Road. Once it gets to Whitmore Lake Road, it is a 3-inch force main going north and a 3-inch force main going all the way south. So we've already told you, and we've already talked about, and let me just take one step back before I continue. The reason why I'm up here, the reason why I'm doing this is not to get into any fights with anyone, it's not to add any conflict, it's not to be combative with anyone. It's trying to create a dialogue, and it's trying to answer some questions. And frankly, it seemed like this was the time to do it. Now, in order for, we've already talked about there's 260 roughly REUs in the district. So let's say theoretically, which it's not master planned appropriately and it's not zoned appropriately, and we've already talked about this district has nothing to do with the proposed development further south, and frankly the proposed development further south is really not a proposed development because there's nothing on the table at this point, but we can get into that at either later or at a different day of discussion. If somebody wanted to build a massive subdivision, let's say over here, or let's say over here, they can't tap into this 3-inch force main. The only way that they can tap into that 3-inch force main is if they're like 5 houses or 10 houses. If they're 500 homes, they have to get back to one of these gravity points. They have to get back to this point, they have to get back to that point, or they have to get back to that point. Those lines already exist. Okay? You can't force, and I know that the individuals, and I know there's a lot of passion around this Biltmore development, which, there's really nothing on the table at this point. But that Biltmore development early on talked about quarter-acre zoning with 400 acres. You do the math, and people have discussed that there's a possibility of 1,400 or 1,500 homes. Now, we've never received a site plan. We've never received any details. There's never been any plans in this community, in the township, to present anything with specificity with respect to the Biltmore development. But let's say somebody further south comes in 5 years from now. They can't fit 500 homes into a line that's designed for 260 REUs. And frankly, they can't do it anyway because the capacity is reserved for the properties in this district.
Now, could they get back to this gravity line? Sure. Could they get to this gravity line? Sure. Could they get to this gravity line? Sure. The only gravity line for this district, and then the reason why it's a gravity line is because engineering recommended it, the only gravity line that exists in this district is from this point to the middle of Whitmore Lake Road.
So my question is then, why in the announcement, if this is to be low pressure force mains, why is the verbiage saying consisting generally of gravity sewer collection?
Because there's a gravity sewer connection line from here to here that's part of the district.
But that's already there.
No, this is not already there. This is part of the district. This is new. That is correct.
But could, with this wording, could that gravity sewer line be expanded? What's to say that that gravity sewer line cannot be expanded somehow based on the wording of this assessment?
There's nothing to say that something can't happen in the future. I can't make something, I can't give you absolute certainty that something in the future may happen or may not happen. I can't say to you that 10 years from now, a board may decide that this property is appropriate for development, that it's not currently master planned for and it's not currently zoned for, and that there is a developer that comes along and extends this gravity line. I can't tell you that that'll never ever happen. I can tell you that the design of this district is not designed to support future development outside of the properties in this district. I can't promise you forever and ever that something is not going to change in the future. There was a time when this was different than it is today. And if somebody had said to you 15 years ago, it'll never be different, they were lying to you. What we can tell you today is the intentions of this board and the intentions of the consultants are not to create a district for expansion further south.
And I hear you. I totally hear you. I think the challenge is the whole timing of this with this development that clearly from the comments tonight I was going plus for people who were in favor of maintaining our rural quality, that just the timing
Yes.
of this is the problem and the overall communication to all of us.
I don't.
understand that you cannot guarantee, but
How many meetings has the board had on this district over the last 3 years or so?
15, 20.
With the business owners being basically the people sitting in the chairs that you all are sitting in. This has been on our agenda repeatedly with no issues from anybody.
And
so
even
there was
beyond this board.
The only time
prior to this board.
This board has had multiple meetings about this district where this stuff has been talked about and has been explained. And so yes, we need to do a better job of communicating, but the people that are in the audience that are hearing the message also have to try and do a more accurate job of disseminating the information that is presented. Now, I will tell you that very early on, when I was here for probably 1 month, and Biltmore first got started, and this district was in its infancy, we did look at the two and whether or not there was economies of scale to connect them. We quickly realized that they were completely at opposite from a policy perspective. We quickly realized that it wasn't appropriate, and we quickly realized that there were no economies to it. And we also realized that the Biltmore situation was a completely separate policy issue, and it should not be related in any way, shape, or form to this particular district. We did look at it from a management perspective, and I believe that that's good management practice. And we quickly decided, within probably a week, less than a week, that the two things were completely separate. And it was very clear that once we started investigating it, once we started looking at the district, that this district, in fact, needed to be designed for this district and this district only. And the fact of the matter remains that it's actually the law. All right? Unless the township has existing policies on their books to say that every line that goes in the township is going to be a particular size because of some larger master plan. The properties in this district can only pay for the improvements and the infrastructure necessary to support their properties. If the township wanted to expand this pipe, we would have to pay the difference. If we wanted to say we're going to build this district for 1,000 REUs, we'd have to pay for the increase of the pipe expansion and capacity. Not the districts, not the residents in the district. That's the facts, guys.
When you say we, you mean the general fund?
That's right. The township. What's that?
That's the public, the general fund.
Yes, and sir, that's what, I mean, in terms of the situation that we're in, I understand what you're saying. I'm not challenging you that the general fund and the people pay this, and you're here and you're expressing your opinions and you're expressing your thoughts, and we thank you for that, and we want you to keep coming to meetings and to express those thoughts, but these are the individuals that you elect to make decisions. And so that's I mean, this is democracy at work. This is how our government works. We elect people to make those decisions, and if we think at some point those decisions are not ideal in our in terms of what we want, we make a different decision as to who we vote for. I can tell you this is a very conscientious board. I haven't been in municipal government for 40 years, but I've been in municipal government for over 10, almost 13 years now. I can tell you this is a very conscientious board. I can tell you it's a very transparent board, despite some of the information that's out there. And all of the information that exists that we have talked about is online.
Can we hear from Mike and Howard? I got some procedural questions. One is, you said out of all the people on there, there's only one decline or someone, one homeowner, one property owner, right? Out of the 24, 25. Right. The other thing is, was this passed? This has been passed, right?
The assessment, the district, Mike, as you know, you were a supervisor of the township, okay? Anytime you do things that are of this significance, there are steps. There are multiple resolutions. There are multiple steps in the process.
Yes, I meant, where are we?
We have already assessed the role. Let me be clear that we did not know, and this is our fault, okay? This is our fault and it's advisor's fault, okay? And we apologize for it. We did not know that the ordinance existed. We did not know that the ordinance that sent out this postcard existed. I was personally informed after the last Planning Commission meeting in the parking lot with a conversation with one of your peers. And I thank the gentleman that did that. In fact, it was David Gordon that told me about it. And I thank him for telling me about it. Okay? We did not know it existed. If we knew it existed, we would have sent it out earlier. Nonetheless, we did send it out in time based on the ordinance and the details of what the ordinance transcribed. And we didn't have a lot of time to try to figure out the precise language. We needed to make sure that we complied with that ordinance. And I'm not saying it's a good ordinance, I'm not saying it's a bad ordinance. What I'm saying is there's nothing in this ordinance that says that if we hadn't sent out that postcard, we would not be legally allowed to pass the district. But none of this board took that into consideration. They said, where an ordinance is on the books, we want to let the people know, send out the postcard. That was the right thing to do, and we did it. And we did it to the best of our ability. So we've assessed the role. To answer your question, we've assessed the role, okay? And tonight, the board is going to authorize whether or not they have financial advisors to go and sell the bonds.
Another question. You had one person that's going to have options of government. I can't hear you. Have difficulty paying out.
I understand the procedures. I mean, they can appeal to the Michigan Tax Tribunal, and hopefully they have luck there. But when I was a supervisor, we also had a group of supervisors that met and had to deal with hardship cases where people could not afford to pay special assessments, especially with Ann Arbor going around annexing different parts of townships, and all of a sudden, there's a assessment, these people, they're going to lose their home. And I actually sat on the board and watched a guy lose his home. Not comfortable with that. So if there's a way that these folks don't get a favorable ruling from the tax tribunal, and I guess, Brad, this is for you, relative to a legal procedure, is there a way that we can help? I mean, the last thing that I would like to have on my mind or conscience is the fact that I actually force someone out of their home. And I've seen that happen a number of different times. So hopefully the board can find a way around that. I know technically everybody's supposed to be assessed the same amount and it's all equal and everything else, but to the extent someone didn't want it to happen, and I know this is a majority rule, it's still not fair. And so if there's a way we can make it fairer for those that do opt out, I'd like to see the board do that. Thank you.
I'll speak to two general issues. I'm reluctant to get into specifics about an individual property because, frankly, I don't think it's appropriate. And I'm not sure it's good policy either. One, there is the ability to appeal to the Michigan Tax Tribunal, and two, there is hardship exemptions that can come from the states. Okay? I'm not going to get into the details of an individual. That's the individual's personal business, and that's the potential legal issues with the township down the road. So I can't speak to that specifically. One of the things that Dale, thank you, Dale, for reminding me, this is an amortization over 20 years. This is not $800,000 in year one. This is an amortization of $800,000 split over 24 properties over 20 years. Gentleman in the red.
I agree with him about there's only 24 people involved or properties. To consider one person's problem, I think is crazy. I think it's inhumane. And the other thing is, can't we are the co-sign what's our upside? What is the purpose? We're being asked to co-sign that alone. For what reason? What good is it doing us? What is your motivation? Are you trying to use up sewers, these taps that are just sitting there?
No, but I'll address that. We have an obligation legally when a group of residents signs a petition. It would be just as outrageous to them if we ignored their petition. They would be here saying, look, we bought a piece of property in an area that is clearly zoned for commercial, industrial, mixed use. This is our legacy. The same as the people who buy rural property, and that is their legacy. They want it to stay natural. It's like being an investor or a developer. People buy this piece of property hoping someday maybe an Applebee's will be put there. So we can't look at those people and say, we deny you your right to make money on your property. Whitmore Lake Road is not a gravel road in the middle of nowhere. It is a thoroughfare. It's pretty easy to anybody who drives anywhere to know that that is the key area where development's probably going to take place, commercial development. It's ideal for it. It's sandwiched between the freeway. It's not conducive to residential, so that's how it's been zoned, and it's been zoned that way in the master plan. So we have to respect the rights of the people, just as people who don't want to develop, who move out here and say, wow, this is a great place, it's rural, I want to preserve that, and they buy their 40 acres. We have to respect the rights of the people who bought property, and I do feel sympathetic. I am the treasurer. I have people losing their homes because of taxes every single year. Let's not forget them either. Maybe we should start a fund, or maybe we should talk about the general fund rescuing some of the people.
This is the decision we're making now.
But it's not a decision we're making now. This is ongoing for years and years.
The first time.
But that is why we have to respect the rights of the people who signed the petition, who want the sewers, and the bond is simply to.
No one showed up, no fire, any business that I've had in, and I ever heard anything about a sewer.
Right, so we talked about this, and people in that area
have been talking about this and informed of this for a long time. The first. Who? Guys, I'm not getting into the details. The petition is actually already out there in the community. I'm not going to get to the specifics of individual businesses and individual properties because it's not appropriate. The first time, okay, can I answer one, or can I make a fact? The first time this was brought up was May 25th, 2011. May 25th, 2011, the board discussed property owner interest in forming a special assessment district. Thank you, Lisa. Yes. They petitioned.
I know you said business.
Everybody in this district.
Did not petition.
Yes, ma'am. Everybody in the faith.
He was originally on
Faith. Yes, ma'am. Everybody in this district was aware of it, and the petition was signed. I'm not getting into the specifics of who signed what, and everybody in particular, because it's just not appropriate.
Yeah, but you're coming back on us, like you're getting aggressive with us, and we're making points that nobody said anything to us. We're supportive of the local businesses. I want to support local businesses every which way. But I've been to these local businesses. I didn't see any flyers. I've seen nobody talking about sewers. We'd love to support them. If this comes up, we get a postcard in the mail. We have no idea really what they're saying. And you're getting aggressive with us, asking, why asking all these questions? Well, what happens is there's been a lot of shenanigans that have gone in Northfield Township. I've lived here for 20 years. When I bought 20 years ago, the first newspaper I had, the first article I read, was about the chief of police was in trouble because there was some marijuana, and one of the officers was taking it home, and the excuse was, the chief of police.
Can we stay on topic, please? Please. All right.
I mean, on and on. Here we are in this building.
Sir,
Yeah.
we need to stay on topic. This is regarding the bond and the $800,000.
It's almost 9 o'clock.
Is there any other place anybody else could use them? Or is there any other thoughts for the board that might want to use them in other areas? Like around the lakes, they have septic problems.
No, the lakes have sewers.
Lake has sewers.
All the lakes have sewers.
All the lakes have sewers. There are other areas. This is pretty much a clay area. You know what I mean?
The vast majority of Northfield Township is zoned or master planned agricultural, and it's very clear from the individuals in the audience that they don't want sewers in those areas, sir. First, I just want to address something. One, I'm here to try to answer questions. I'm not here to try to be combative. Sometimes my excitement and the tone, it's not intentional, but because I talk loud, it sometimes comes across that way. So I apologize if it has in any way. I'm here taking this time, not only for myself, but at the board's request, to try to have this conversation and get the information, not to be combative in any way, sir, but we're trying to answer the questions to the best of our ability, and some of the questions we believe are just sort of factually based. Ms. Wagner.
A question.
That's you.
When this all first started back in 2011, I know one of the questions that we had was why can't, I guess this came up later too, we found out about the 12-inch pipe going from North Territorial southbound 23 to the rest stop. Why can't these businesses tap into that instead of going to a whole new?
The pipe that goes to the rest stop is not this pipe. The pipe that goes to the rest stop is a force main pipe specifically designed for the rest stop by the Michigan Department of Transportation. It is not a pipe that can be tapped into for the exact same reason that any force main designed for a particular use cannot be tapped into for larger expansion. There is no pipe on this map that you see that goes to the rest area. The pipe that ends along US 23 ends right about where Creative Cars is. The only way that the pipe could service the district as a whole is to put it down the middle of Whitmore Lake Road, and that way the pipe can service both sides of the road. The question that you're asking is certainly a valid question. We did address that initially on. We did indicate that the pipe going to the rest stop was a force main pipe that was designed in and put in by the state of Michigan and only for the rest stop. We've addressed that. We've answered that question. There's nothing more that we can do from that perspective. There were two ways at which this district theoretically could be designed. One is to go around the corner, and the other is to go across this. For various reasons, we felt it was more appropriate to go across here, not only for the benefit of the residents in the district, but also from a cost perspective. I forgot your name. Kathy.
What was the bid amount for the project? $500,000?
The bid amount was about $500,000, and the total project costs are about $800,000. The overage is dedicated to, and yes, there's no question, and I'm not going to make excuses for this. I've certainly worked in government for the last 13 years, and there's no question that any project in government has a lot of studying attached to it. We have very good consultants and we have very good advisors. Those consultants and advisors are no more expensive or no less expensive than all the rest of them. But the rest of the cost is in fact for engineering studies, is in fact for legal counsel, is in fact for financial advisors. There's 3 individuals that are required on any bond deal in Michigan. Obviously, although engineering is not required, you can't obviously do a project like this unless you engineer it. Bond counsel is required, so there's costs for specific legal counsel and any time you issue municipal debt, and also the law requires that financial advisors be retained as well. Those are 3 individuals.
We have assurance that it will stay dedicated to the project and won't get expended in any other way.
Well, you have...
Right.
That's for Mr. Mann, I think, but the assessment.
You mean the money? You're talking about the money?
The collections may or may not be redirected to other.
That is correct. You do have assurances of that, and I will... Sorry. You do...
That they will not be directed to other expenditures?
That is correct. And you do have assurances of that, and I will point to a particular thing that this board did, which was probably one of the things that I've never seen happen in my 13 years of government, but this board took it upon themselves, and not took it upon themselves, that's probably not the best language, but discovered an issue of $600,000 to $700,000 of monies that existed in the Horseshoe Lake Sewer Special Assessment Fund from the 1970s. This board distributed $700,000 back to the people because its rightful place was back to the people of the Horseshoe Lake Sewer Assessment District. A special assessment district can only go to the benefit of the properties in that special assessment district, and eventually if there's money left over at the end of the day after 20 years and the whole property is built out and there's no more infrastructure, there are provisions in the law that require, depending on the percentages and depending on the amounts and various other legal technical issues, that provide for that money to go back to the people.
Howard?
And the people meaning the people in the district.
Howard, also include that it is the interest and the monies from the SAD that were returned back to Horseshoe Lake.
So yes. So $700,000 went back to the people. It was probably original $400,000. I may mean $300,000 when it first. I have not seen that gentleman in the blue ask a question. Two more questions.
It looks like the obligation for each parcel is if there's 24 parcels that are included in the tax special assessment. Is that correct?
Yes.
So then that works out to about $34,000 per parcel.
That's correct.
It depends on the size.
The size of the parcel, frontage, and size.
Okay. So it's that amount of money being added to their, I'm not sure, I was just asking a question.
Yes,
Is that
over 20
amount of
years.
money being added to their tax assessment?
Yes, over 20 years. Amortized over 20 years.
And they pay it off right away?
Yes.
Okay,
They
so
pay it
there
off
was-
and not have to deal with the interest.
I was involved in this one, so that's why I asked.
Thank you.
Why
Very
I
good question.
said-
Very good question.
Again, I
One more question. I know when the city of Ann Arbor annexed,
The city of Ann Arbor annexed Ann Arbor Township. They ran the sewer down Pontiac Trail, and there was a significant amount of controversy over that. What the city then decided was, people only had to pay if they hooked up to the sewer. If they had an existing, they ran sewer and water, and they only had to hook up if their septic went bad or if their well went bad, then they had to hook up. But until that point, they did not have to pay the money for the value of the sewer and water. And again, I don't know if that was done on a special assessment or that was just something that the city council decided to do. But I would encourage you guys to at least look at that to see if there is some opportunity for that to take place. Thank you. Thank you, Howard, for your explanation of all this.
For what to take place, that they only pay if they hook it?
They only pay if they hook it.
So in terms of, to answer Mike's question partially, in terms of the hookup policy, this board has been clear that they're going to address and debate that policy for this district. We haven't gotten there yet. So we are going to discuss when these properties are going to be required to hook up, what that timeline is, what the protocol is. There are multiple people on this board that have indicated that it's probably appropriate to not require hookup until a septic system fails. Various other people have other perspectives on when a hookup should be required. That is going to be debated on this board. So Mike, that's a partial answer to your question, but it's not been addressed yet.
Well, I think the other piece of that is the people that didn't hook up didn't have to pay for any assessment.
Well, that's not law. That's not legal. I don't know how that case, I don't know how that, what happened, but that's not the way special assessment districts work in the state of Michigan. Maybe, maybe not. But that's just not SADs in the state of Michigan. Do you guys want to maybe take 5 more minutes of questions? What does the board think? Just keep going until we don't?
Well, I mean, I think we've covered, yeah.
Okay.
Find the ones that have not had a chance to speak.
Well, help me with who those are. You have it? Okay. Sure.
One is, I see that this poor board is compared to a problem with a business that doesn't have a bill for sewer, and having trouble trying to collect that. Are there systems in place where you foresee any problems with collecting payments on sewer? Found out hadn't been billed for a number of years, they're inherited this problem.
Correct.
So you can think about that in the future to be more successful.
Yeah. So again, one of the things to this credit that this board has done, and I have assisted with them and advised them and brought up issues, and they have taken action on the issues, is to address some of the management of various systems of the township over the last 3 years and 3.5 years that they've been here. And one of those has been, and we don't shy away from this, and we do not hide any of this. This is the reality, and we've addressed it, is that there were a lot of mistakes that were made related to how businesses were billed. And there were a number of businesses that were not being billed based on the existing ordinances that were in place.
And that was prior to this board.
That was prior to this board. We discovered it and we're addressing it. We're not shying away from issues, and we're not shying away from the hard ones. What we did and what I did and Mrs. Westover, who's the clerk, we mandated that the superintendent of the sewer treatment plant do a commercial audit and go around to every commercial business to determine whether or not their business is being billed appropriately and based on the existing ordinance. Because frankly, we bill based on the ordinance, not what we think it should be, not what we would like it to be, not what we want it to be, but what the ordinance is. And so we did that, and we did find that there were 2 businesses that were not being paid. Actually, one of the businesses we found previously that led us to the audit, led us to the discovery of the issue, and then we found a second business that was not paying. There are a lot of issues that have happened in the past, and some issues we frankly can't address. And we can't go back and fix, but we can fix them moving forward. We do have systems in place now, and we hope those systems work and we continue to evaluate them.
If business is not paid, that will affect the course.
Yeah, and let me just say, there's an interesting point, and you bring it up.
affect the rest of the township, the sewer plant, the sewer fund is what they call an enterprise fund, which means that the only people that pay into that fund are the people in the sewer district. The taxpayers do not pay for sewer repairs unless you're in a sewer district. David Gort, David, can I mention your name? Okay, somebody that is not hooked up to sewers does not pay a quarterly sewer bill. Okay, the quarterly sewer bill is designed to deal with the maintenance of the system. It's what an enterprise district is. An enterprise district basically is money in has to equal money out. That's why your rates increase. For those of you who are on sewer, your rates went up because we found that we were dipping into fund balance. Because we were dipping into fund balance, we needed to increase the rates to accommodate for an aging infrastructure and to deal with the study issues and the management issues that we had. We increased the rates. Those rates are based on the plant, the expenses of the plant, the expenses of Tim Hardesty's department, so on and so forth. It's an equal. It's a zero-sum game, guys. If you're not on the sewer district, you don't pay into the sewer district. Now, yes, I'm not going to shy away from the fact that this bond has a full faith and credit pledge of the general fund, and there is a theoretical possibility that that would happen. It's a very unlikely possibility. It is, in fact, though, the way Michigan works and the way Michigan law works, and it is, in fact, the way that municipal funding and municipal bonding works all over America. This is government, and this is the way that government creates dollars, makes dollars or generates dollars for investment.
Little.
It's on the sheet, the postcard, the second paragraph, the second sentence. The bonds and the interest thereon will be primarily payable as a special assessment to be collected on the land situated in the district. My question is, why was the word primarily used?
That would be legal counsel, and Steve Mann. Well, primarily because, again, we're not shying away from the issue that there is a possibility. It's a slight possibility, it's an unlikely possibility, but it is a possibility. It is a possibility that dollars would have to come from elsewhere. We're not shying away from that. I'm just pointing out that that's the way infrastructure development works in the state of Michigan, and that's the way bond funding works all over America. And I've been doing this, I've never had a bond that wasn't done in this particular way. David, you've asked a number of questions. The lady in the back here, I don't remember.
I just have Janet Fuller. I live in Madison Court. I just want to thank you, Howard, for explaining this to me, because I was alarmed when I got this, and I assume everyone in Whitmore Lake got it. I think it's an informative meeting, and I think we need to grow our community. The downtown businesses are suffering, and I'd like to see more businesses, even if it's a little farther out of downtown. We need to grow. I think Whitmore Lake is suffering, and it is nice to see agriculture. I grew up on a 360-acre dairy farm, and I love the community we're in. But this is business property. You informed us that this is commercial and industrial, not residential. Is that right?
It's mixed use. It's mixed use planning, which means there could be residential as part of a mixed use development.
Okay, so someone that owns one of those parcels or 20 parcels could put some homes in there. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what you're hearing. If you look at this zoning map, there's, as I've said before, there is a zoning map and there is a master plan map, right? And I've said that they don't always coincide. The zoning map shows that most of the properties in this district, the purple properties right here, are actually zoned industrial. Now, this master plan, the master plan is mixed use. Okay? So the master plan, and we can have that conversation as to why that exists like that. And that's just sort of planning. The master plan doesn't always relate perfectly to zoning. But to answer your question, I can't ever guarantee that it'll never be residential development, but it is mostly mixed use industrial, and there are, within the master plan, allowances for some residential, but they'd have to go in front of the Planning Commission, and they would have to have a zoning change in order to make that happen. Yes, David.
I won't use more than 3 minutes. This is the public comment on this, and I haven't really asked any questions. I just was able to respond to Treasurer Braun once. But I think that these accusations about misinformation and misconception should really stop. I've been doing my best to try to inform people as to what's going on. I don't like them, those being characterized as misinformation. There's a number of subjects here which Howard brought up, which I think actually need to be addressed by the board more than by our manager, who's done his best this evening. There are assurances that this has nothing directly to do with Biltmore. But when we saw Biltmore come in here, they optioned specific properties, and their specific properties went directly up into the very bottom of this special assessment district. And while they may not be able to directly link into this 3-inch main, it does give a developer who would want to put a bunch of homes in the southern part of our community, southwest quadrant, the argument as follows. We have property, it abuts a sewer district right now. We're not asking you to extend sewers into an area that leapfrogs, because we have property that's adjacent to an existing sewer district, and that's what you're creating here. So even though it's not directly related, it is a slippery slope that takes one of the tools in our arsenal to fight development in the rural area out of our kit, in my opinion. I think that's something that should be talked about. So it may not directly have something to do with Biltmore, but it is related. When you talk about the sewer plant having only 60% capacity and there's all this capacity available, I do recall meetings that I've attended where our Tetra Tech man has stepped forward, our engineer, and said, we have to look at spending $3 million right now for a retention basin without any other houses coming in. We've got 4 other special assessment districts that we've already approved, and we'd have to spend tens of millions of dollars if they came in and wanted to hook up. So it just doesn't seem like it's common sense to me why you would, when you have a very small amount of capacity without having to spend millions of dollars, you would use it on this. It's $800,000 benefiting only maybe 20 businesses. And if you're managing this limited resource that you have, you have to be very careful on who you give it away to, because eventually you run out and then you're sitting there with a very big bill. I don't think anybody in this community really wants to fork up a lot of money for a sewer expansion of that size. And in terms of petitions, these businesses may have come in and petitioned the board. And yes, you can't ignore a petition from a group of businesses, but I remember delivering a petition to this board regarding the Biltmore project that had the signatures of 100% of the people that live bordering the properties that were optioned. And that was ignored. And I think that's the issue, and the issue is trust and communication. And while it's true that the Planning Commission recently sent a letter to Biltmore inviting them to come into the community as long as they stayed within the master plan, there was another motion that was made that night to inform the rest of the townships in Washtenaw County that we weren't in the process of reviewing our master plan. That went down and did not get approved. So we're still in the process of doing a bunch of things for Biltmore.
Mr. Gordon, your 3 minutes is up, and I really hate to cut you short, but this meeting was to talk about the bonds and not future development of the township.
Well, they are related.
Can I make one?
I'm just trying to say it's
no, Mr. Gordon.
Proactive.
I would like to make one statement before the next speaker speaks up. Back in 2002, there was a judgment placed against Northfield Township to have a basin put in. Since then, every board ignored it. They said, one board member, particularly from the previous board, said to me, why should we do it when nobody has come to us and has told us or forced us to do it? When you have a court judgment against you, it's the right thing to do. these past boards have put this township at risk. Why would this board want to wait until a township or another township forces us to address the judgment when we should have done it back in 2002? That's why we're putting in the basin.
Guys, Jackie is exactly right. I just want to correct one tiny thing. We're studying the basin. I mean, there's no there's no plan right now to dig a hole in the ground. But yeah, but Jackie is 100% correct. 100% correct. This board is not going to kick the can down the road. The basin is necessary to deal with the peak flow that we have today. It should have been addressed 10 years ago. We're addressing it now. It's not an issue of whether or not we build 1,000 homes in an agricultural area. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with good government. It has to do with good management.
And
it
how
has to
about
do
bring up
with
the-
understanding your existing infrastructure and your community and dealing with it appropriately. You know, there's a lot of passion in the room, again, for development in the agricultural areas. I hear it and I get it. But that's not what these issues are about. Certainly the issue of Biltmore is about that. There's no question about that. And the issue of Biltmore is in front of the Planning Commission. The issue of Biltmore is not in front of this board. This board is dealing with its existing infrastructure and saying, to this board's credit, different from previous boards, to say we're going to understand it and we're going to create a plan. And I want to say one more thing. Sorry, Marilyn. The reason why I'm up here is because of this board. This board asked me to prepare remarks and to answer questions, and so the credit goes to these folks. They're a very conscientious group of people, and they're a very transparent group of people. And all the information, all the stuff is online, in minutes, videos. It's all out there, guys. The study of the capacity study, it's online. There's been lots of FOIAs. The information is out there. Anybody who wants to know, come in and talk with me. You want to have conversations with your elected officials about policy issues? Talk to your elected officials. Talk to the people that make these decisions. But this board is not dealing with the issue of development in the agricultural areas. It's not even in front of them. And in fact, the Biltmore issue is not even a site plan. It's not even a concept plan. There's no homes on a paper. There's no designs that were drawn up. No one knows where roads would be, parks would be, nothing. It's a developer who optioned land, who came in and asked for a master plan amendment, and that's as far as it got. And that is what is happening today that happened 2 years ago.
Howard, can I just interrupt for 1 second?
Yes.
Also to say, in all fairness, we talk a lot about the people who don't want the development, but the board has no control. This is America. The people who gave the developer options on their land, they have a right to do that. They may have bought that land with the idea, if they bought it 50 years ago, that someday I will be able to develop this. Look, it's right along a main thoroughfare. This is my legacy for my children, or whatever. So you just have to look at their side too. They have as much a right to give options to the developer. We didn't encourage them to do that. We had no role in that. It's just their right to do that with their land. So, and we'll all work this out, hopefully, so that everyone is happy in the end.
And I wouldn't mind just bringing up, Jackie had brought up the equalization basin, and that is not for the sewer expansion, everyone. It is for wet weather conditions. When we have too much rain, if we don't hold the sewage someplace, it only gets half treated and gets dumped into the rivers. It is an environment. What? People in the sewer district, or that's a whole another thing. But the equalization basin is to stop sewage from being dumped.
The equalization basin is the equalization basin in a peak flow period, right? We have a bunch of pipes. In the heavy rains in the springtime, water infiltrates in those pipes.
We have a capacity of a plant that's 1.1 million gallons. It can handle maybe 1.5 or 1.7 or whatever the case may be. All of a sudden, there's massive rains, and they just get too much. They just get too much stuff. They get too much effluent. Okay, and they have to deal with it. The equalization basin basically is a big giant tank that allows them to put that effluent in a big giant tank so the plant can catch up. The same reason you don't build plants, you don't design plants for 100% build-out scenario in a community. You also don't design plants for one day of the year. You don't design parking lots for 3 days of the year. How many people in this room who are sort of planning, professionals, but lay people planning professionals would say we shouldn't build parking lots like Walmart that has 600 cars, and the only time that they need 600 parking spaces is on Christmas and the day after Thanksgiving. We don't build sewer plants for 100% build out, and we don't build sewer plants for 3 days of the year. That's why we have things like equalization basins.
I know we have one more speaker here. We do have a policy that our meetings do not go past 10 o'clock. We might make a small exception for maybe 15, 20 minutes today, but we do want to move this along. So maybe we can get our speaker up. Howard? Jim?
I'd just like to help Howard out with his failing memory. He mentioned earlier that there was no site plan from Biltmore, and that was true, but on March 4th at the Planning Commission meeting, in response to a question from Sam Iaquinto, who was puzzled by the assertion that there had been about 1,500 homes planned, Howard Fink himself said, acknowledge that. And it's on video, it's online, it's out there for the whole world to see. Also, at the same meeting, Howard explained that in what he termed back-of-the-envelope calculations, that he had told Biltmore that they didn't really have to run down the middle of Whitmore Lake Road because they could run straight to the highway and go north from there. So I hope that helps.
And for the rest of our speakers, can I please remind you this is to talk about the bond issue.
Just because it's at me personally, I just want to address it.
Sure,
real quick.
yes,
I'm not going to go
absolutely.
into details. Guys, I believe I'm an ethical individual, and I try to tell the truth. Jim, it's just a distortion of the facts. It is, Jim, and I'm not going to get into an argument with you, okay? That's just it. I'm an honest individual, and I tell the truth. And if you'd like, you can have a conversation with me, and I'll happily discuss this. Jim, I'm not having a debate with you on it, okay? This is an issue. Jim, I'm not having a debate with you on it tonight. This is an issue that has been addressed for 2 years.
And this discussion is for the bonds of the district, all right?
Any
other
questions
comments
before we?
in that regard?
Yeah.
We have called to the
Sorry.
public for other things
Sorry,
to talk about. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
A notice way back when you started this to everybody that's in this property. Of those people that are in this property, how many are actually homeowners? So whether you have a horse farm or whether you have 100 feet on there, how many people are homeowners, how many people are businesses, and how many people are just land waiting for development?
I think in terms of homeowners, you're 1 or 2, maybe 3 at the most. And maybe 4. I don't even know if that's out, Chuck. 4, 5. So, well, I don't even know that it's that high. But not to say that they're not vacant parcels, but if you're talking about a home on the property, I think it's less than 4. There are probably 50 or 60% of them that are 50 or 60% of them that are probably businesses, and the rest is probably vacant land. Would you agree, Brian?
Joanne Martella Pearson, 5756 Earhart Road. So I'm not going to beat a dead horse, and I'm not going to go back to all the things we've discussed. But I think the majority of us, from the comments, are concerned about this, and I understand that it's a special assessment district, we are concerned of all of the nebulous things that continue to orbit, that it's a minuscule amount back. What is minuscule on $800,000? That's a lot of money, but that it's a minuscule amount. There's no dollar amount with that. That would be nice to know what could potentially be paid back. Now, I understand that these liens would probably pay them back, but there's all of this language generally, as Lenore pointed out, primarily. And so, I mean, it seems like it's a done deal, and I think most people are just not going to come up here because it's like, what is the point? Well, I'm up here because I also don't know what is the point at this particular point in the process, but it's just disconcerting as a member of this township that this has come about in this manner, and then there are still so many unanswered questions, and it seems like it's moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, only new speakers, please. We do not have the amount of time to finish the rest of our meeting. Yeah, come on. Yeah, Howard.
Hi, Terry Gordonier, 5196 Sutton Road. And Mr. Fink, thank you very much for your presentation tonight. My question, we all received the wonderful yellow postcard. Did these 24 parcel owners also receive the postcard? And is there any reason why none of them are here tonight to say, yes, we want this?
They've been to multiple public meetings.
But something so important, you would think they would also show up for this meeting.
They've been here. Right, but we're discussing it tonight. Right, but because the previous meeting was just as in a critical vote as tonight is. They've been here, they've indicated, I encourage you to go on to the videos and look at them and look at the minutes. It's online.
We don't have cable, we don't have internet, remember? We're the dead zone.
The library has free internet.
We do have a library.
Guys, I mean, they've been here. I can tell you. I mean, Dale Brewer is a realtor. That, huh?
I've been at every meeting since 2011. It started when
Cindy Wilson.
was the clerk at that time.
Oh, you mean Michelle Manning?
Michelle Manning. And that's when this all started. I've been here. They've been here. There's been discussions, pros and cons. I mean, this isn't something that's just developed.
But it's interesting that tonight is the night they chose not to come.
This is just a procedural meeting.
They've already. It could also be said that it was interesting that the last meeting all of you weren't here, correct?
What's that?
They were all here last time.
Tonight's is not a public hearing. It was the public hearing that you really should have been here. And they were here. Mrs., I'm going to butcher your name, Whitmore was here. I mean, they were all here. Tonight's not a public hearing. We put it as an agenda item.
I don't think anyone's avoiding being here. They were here for the public hearing. They were here for the public hearing.
Yeah,
I think they're purposely avoiding you.
they have already expressed that they want this done by the fact that they've signed the petition and they've been to the meeting. What else do you want from them?
Can I ask you?
Go ahead, Chuck.
Can I ask you one thing? Where have you been since 2011? Have you? Okay, so please, I'm asking you. I mean, it's wonderful that you're here. I appreciate everyone that is here.
This is the first meeting that I've been to. Again, I did make a comment. I've lived here for 20 years, and what I will say is people say, why are the Northfield neighbors, why are they raising these questions? And I tell them, because I've lived here 20 years, there's been a lot of shenanigans.
Well, David Perry was the one that said.
Okay?
If you want to be more informed, if you want to have your comments known, come to the township meetings. He was the one that said that. He said that earlier tonight, and that's what you need to do.
Here's Mr. and Mrs. Stoyer come to our meetings all the time.
We are here for most every meeting. Chuck Stoyer,
Absolutely.
766 Mile Road.
And Chuck, do you agree with us all the time?
I agree with you less than 50% of the
Thank
time,
you.
probably. But much of what I heard tonight concerning the issue we're supposed to be talking about, the board and Howard have represented the facts accurately. And they have been represented at all of the meetings that I have been to accurately. And I have cable and I have a computer. Not everybody does, but there are ways to get access to cable and go watch it on somebody else's TV if you're not home. And I would stress that it's important that you all and Howard use the microphone, because the people at home, whether it's on the computer or on cable, don't hear the personal conversations that are taking place. Thank you.
Anybody who hasn't spoken yet? Going once?
I'll make it quick. My name is Mike Suttonen. I'm at 7155 Vintage Drive. There was a question that was asked about the number of these parcels that are vacant. There's 28 total, 24, and how many of them are vacant? There's some number that are vacant though, right?
Yes. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
The number isn't that special. My point is, you said this isn't speculative, but in fact, if those are vacant parcels, I think it is, because the people that are voting on that petition to get the sewer line are speculating that they'll be able to sell their properties for a lot more right after the sewer line gets in than they can right now. Or am I missing something?
I understand your point. Maybe you could explain how we're required to spread out the assessment roll, make it equal to each property,
Oh, I understand that, but this is not speculative.
Right.
But it is.
I would disagree with that. I do not think it is.
And I don't want to... I understand. You don't want to argue.
No, it's not that I don't want to argue. I would answer it, but we're running low on time.
Yeah, we're talking about the bond issue,
That's what they call zoning.
I think argue
unless you're the one that's doing the argument.
You know what, guys, I'll explain it if everybody wants to stay. Okay, so in the Sylvan Township instance,
don't bring in the Sylvan Township.
Well, that's
explain what we're actually doing.
Well,
And why.
that's how I'm going to.
Okay.
Okay, so in the Sylvan Township instance, the speculative SAD, and I do take offense to being indicated that I'm not holding it, but in a speculative SAD, a developer comes in and has 300 acres of property, and the property is vacant. And the developer says to the township, I'm going to build a subdivision and I'm going to put in 300 homes. So go ahead and create an SAD and bond for the improvements, and then I'll pay back those dollars when the taxes come due, or when the properties end up building. And ultimately what ends up happening is the developer goes bankrupt, or the developer ends up backing out of the deal, and you have one person to go after, or one entity to go after. Water conservation. And so you only have one or two or three entities to go after for all of the properties or for all of the lots. This is not for a particular developer. It's not for one person. It's not for one property. It's not for one district. It's not for one entity. This is for 24 entities, of which the majority of them, or a lot of them, do have improvements on their properties, and their properties have value.
And so when we talk about whether or not it's speculative or not, we're talking about whether or not we are creating an SAD for the purposes of future development, or we're talking about whether or not we're creating an SAD for the individual businesses and the individual property owners that can ask for it, as opposed to a developer coming in and saying, I'm going to option 300 or 400 acres of land, and I want the township or the city in order to fund the sewer improvements. So when I speak of speculative development, and Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that that's kind of the lingo in the industry when we talk about speculative SADs. That's generally what we're talking about. Would you agree or clarify? And Dale, you've been doing this for a long time, and Mr. Benzinski. So when I say that it's not speculative, that's what I mean. I'm not shying away from the fact that there are, in fact, some vacant properties in the district. And the greater the number of vacant properties, the higher level the risk. The lower the number of vacant properties, the lower the risk, because the lien is placed on not only the property, but also on the improvements. So that's the full explanation.
And Howard, if a property owner feels it's unequal, they have the State of Michigan Tribunal to go to to have it reviewed.
Yes. Tax tribunal.
Tax tribunal.
So the assessment has to roughly equal the improvement value of the property, and if the Michigan Tax Tribunal decides that it's not, it doesn't have to be precise, but if the Michigan Tax Tribunal decides that it's significantly less, the cost of the improvement is significantly less than the value of the increase of the property, then they can reduce the assessment.
I'm sorry, you had to step away for a minute. So are you finished, Howard?
Mm-hmm. My name is Tom Coates. I live in Canton, Michigan. I'm a property owner. So I don't know how much my voice means to everybody here. But it seems like the parcels that are not improved are the vast majority in terms of acreage. If those properties are developed and they're allowed the mixed code, will they go residential? And if they do, how much will that increase the amount of effluent going through the system? Is it not the vast majority of the properties that are vacant?
The district has been designed for 260. The district has been designed for 266 REUs. 266 REUs is the number of REUs that can go in the pipe. An REU is sort of a theoretical number. I can get into the explanation of how that's calculated and what that means, but it's roughly equivalent to 260 gallons a day. So the district is 260 REUs. That's what the pipe supports. If somebody wants to build 500 homes, those pipes can't support 500 homes. It only supports 266 REUs, and we consider one house to be one REU. Now, it doesn't always equal, because an REU is a theoretical number. It's not always perfect math, but it's the way engineers evaluate capacity and costs and things of that nature. And kind of getting into the sort of nuanced details of that would take me about 20 more minutes, 30 more minutes. Does that answer your question?
Pretty much.
Okay.
A pertinent point to support you on that one, Howard, is I believe the largest parcel I'm looking at down there may be of 40 acres. Maybe. 10 or 12, okay. 10 or 12 under existing zoning says 2 houses can go on 10 in that area. Am I not correct? Yeah. So we're not talking about subdivisions going in down there. Maybe that somebody could buy 5 or 6 of those parcels and build 50 homes.
Right.
But 50 homes would only be 50 REUs.
Or get it rezoned, and if because of the master planning is mixed use,
If they wanted to have a rezoning and have a development proposal, they'd have to go in front of the Planning Commission. And if that were to happen, notice would go out to the residents in the area. And I guarantee you, if it was a controversial development, the word would get out there and everybody would know about it, and we would be having the discussion on the development. Many of the people in this room, and I think that it's a good thing that they're involved in their local government, many of the people in this room have come to the Planning Commission meetings and talked about various development proposals and various development site plans that have been in front of the Planning Commission. So there is a process of which that does happen and gets addressed.
Are there any cases where a developer comes, I don't think I need it, where a developer comes, buys a large parcel of land, has a lot of resources, and then just comes and sues the board simply with the argument that this is America, this is my property, I should be able to do with it what I want, and next thing you know, zoning laws change, and the developer comes in and does what he wants?
The shorter answer is yes. The short answer is yes.
And
So just to cut the case, that's actually while I'm here. What? I think Kathy explained the history. This is what happens. Developers have the right to come in and do what they want. I'm a person that wants to
I
change
did
that.
not say developers have the right to come in and do what they want. I said landowners have the right to do what they want with their own land. And just like you do.
The track record of that tendency is not in the public good. So just cut to the case, I'm in that camp.
You know, sir.
Well, this isn't a fascist state. I mean, we don't control people's property. That's the way America is. You buy a piece of property, and you are allowed to petition your local government. If you want to change the zoning, you're allowed to do it. That's what happens. Whether it goes through or not, that's what public debate is about. That's what democracy
And
is
tonight's
about.
discussion
But you have a right.
is to be talk about the 800,000 and the full faith of the township. I think we've gone way off board with this, conspiracy theory that there's all this development that we were, keeping from everybody. If we're done talking about the full faith and credit of the $800,000, I would like to move this meeting on. It is 9:45, and we still have the rest of our agenda to take care of. Is there anyone else that has not spoken that would like to speak about the $800,000 and the full faith and credit of the township? Thank you. We've had a lot of talk tonight, and Kathy and all our board members. Is there anyone else that would like to comment on anything? What you're sure? Well, no. I mean, this has been open discussion. I figured if anyone wants to say it, okay. I can save mine also, so we can move the meeting along here. All right, so that takes us on to our agenda item number 2, and that is, I'll just go ahead and make a motion to approve the resolution 15-534, which is the issuance of the 2016 special assessment bonds.
Madam Supervisor, if you'd like me to summarize the resolution, just so you guys know what
Absolutely.
you're adopting, I'd be happy to do so, and I can do it pretty quickly. Again, my name is Ryan Benzinski. I'm with Benzinski & Company, and we've assisted the township in regards to borrowing to financing projects to make sure that hopefully when the township goes to borrow that you get the lowest borrowing cost. The resolution that you have before you tonight has been approved by the Township's Bond Council, Miller, Canfield, Paddock, and Stone, who is unfortunately not able to be here tonight due to prior obligations and due to the fact that this was set for a later meeting that got pushed up. So they do apologize for that. However, the resolution you have before you does authorize the issuance of not to exceed $800,000 in limited tax, full faith and credit, general obligation bonds of the township. They are first payable primarily from the special assessments on the property owners. The $800,000 of the amount of bonds coincides with the amount pledged by the property owners, also in the amount of $800,000. It is specifically and only for the purpose of establishing, acquiring, constructing, installing equipment, equip sanitary sewer improvements within the Whitmore Lakes Sewer Special Assessment District, which we have gone over several times into exactly what that is. The bonds may be issued over a period of not to exceed 20 years. The bonds will first be callable on April 1, 2024. That way, if the township does receive any prepaid assessments and there's a balance there to be used. The bonds can be called prior to redemption, so interest is not accruing over the full duration of the 20 years that you do have. Additionally, the number is not to exceed. As we stated, there was 1 or 2 property owners that did say they were going to appeal to the tax tribunal. If that appeal holds water and there comes back that their assessment will be less, or if the township gets prepayments before the bonds are actually sold, this can be reduced so that the amount to be borrowed, and so that ultimately what the property owners are paying back and what the general fund, in case of any delinquencies from the collections of the special assessments, would be reduced accordingly, so that the bonds would be issued to an amount equal to or less than the amount pledged on the assessment roll. The resolution also states that the township board does have the ability to charge 1% above the interest rate borne on the bonds to the special assessment district property owners. That is also to help in case of any delinquencies or any shortfalls. That, again, is a charge that only the property owners would be paying for. Other than that, it authorizes a sale of the bonds either at a competitive or negotiated sale. We'll discuss that with the administration and any other board members or anybody else that has any questions after all these other issues with the tax tribunal and the prepayments have been settled. If anybody else has any questions or if I can expand on anything, I'm happy to do so. Again, I am not your legal counsel, but I can speak generally to what this resolution entails if there's any other specific questions.
I'll
Jen?
support.
Okay. So Ingstrom motion and Chick supported. Roll call vote. I'll start to my left, Thomas.
Yes.
Otto.
Yes.
Westover.
Yes.
Ingstrom, yes. Chick.
Yes.
Braun. Thank you. Motion passes. On to item number 3, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 15-535, the reinstatement of the non-ERISA retirement plan.
I'll support.
Ingstrom motioned, Otto supported. Any questions or discussion? Okay, that's another roll call vote. Braun? Chick?
Yes.
Ingstrom, yes. Westover?
Yes.
Otto?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
On to number 4, which is the 2016 board meeting schedule, I'll make a motion to approve the 2016 board meeting scheduled as presented.
Support. Oh, sorry.
Who took that one?
Braun.
Okay, Ingstrom motioned and Braun supported. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. And then number 5, the 2016, I'll make a motion to approve the 2016 holiday schedule as presented.
Support.
Ingstrom motioned and Otto supported. And those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Then it takes us on to our second call to the public. This is another opportunity for anyone to get up and speak. Once again, we do limit it to 3 minutes. And keep in mind, this is not a question and answer session. We are not allowed to talk at this time. We are not ignoring you. It is just so we can keep the meeting rolling and we can make comments later. Is there anyone else that would like to speak tonight?
Dale Brewer, 11548 East Shore Drive, Whitmore Lake. I'd just like to commend you, the board, and Howard on the presentation. I think you did an excellent job of trying to bring people up to date for those that have been not involved in the process of this. You've done an admirable job of bringing it all out and trying to address all of the questions and answers for everything. Again, it's just, it is a tedious process, and one thing that wasn't mentioned is that for those of you that are in the public that don't have access to cable or TV or any of the others, the minutes of the meetings or a synopsis of the meetings is published in the newspaper on a monthly basis or on a weekly basis after they've been approved. So there is a synopsis. If you want additional information, you can always come to the township and get that. The only other question I had related back to the bond issue, and I thought that the council had recommended that you look at the contract, because it needed to be signed before January 1st as well, for this to ensure that the contractor would be in place to proceed with this. So I believe it was in the notes that were in the agenda, so I didn't see any action on that.
Thank you, Dale, for your nice words. We appreciate it. Our next speaker.
Are you there? No? Yeah. Faith Wheeler, 371 Grove on Horseshoe Lake. One of the things that I heard in the conversation was that this is going to be planned down the middle of the road of Old US 23. Is this correct? And if it is, or is it going to be on the side, one side or the other? Why I'm asking is this going to be at the same time that they're going to be addressing US 23 between Silver Lake Road and 14?
Great, thank you. As you know, we can't answer at this time. It's just time for us to listen to everyone. Is there any other speakers right now? No, right? Okay. That takes us on to our board member comments. Kathy, do you have anything else that you'd like to share this evening? Janet, do you have anything?
I do. Sorry, it's just three things. I'll try to make
take
it
your
really
time.
quick. Okay, but I just
We
wanted to...
we'll make an exception to go over this
All right,
evening.
thank you. Okay. I just wanted to clarify something. The Planning Commission made the motion to direct Biltmore to comply with the master plan only because to date they have not given us anything to discuss or deliberate on. We cannot deliberate on an amendment to the master plan void of any information, including items we have requested from Biltmore. Hence the motion asking them to comply. It was not a result of any outside pressure from anyone or any group. Secondly, the second motion that Mr. Gordon referred to about the amendment, the motion was made at the end of the Planning Commission meeting during board member comments to, not to pass the amendment, a proposal that Biltmore had, not to approve the amendment to the master plan that Biltmore had asked for. It happened at board member comments. It was a surprise. The Planning Commission was not prepared to discuss anything. They had no information on it. It was not voted. It failed. Nobody supported it. So it was not that we didn't pass it. It just failed. So I wanted to make that clarification. And then Howard, actually, I have a question for you. Our planner, Beckett and Rader, I'd asked to see the invoices because we haven't seen anything yet from them, and I wanted to know what we were being billed for. And there was an item on there where the planner had billed the township for a meeting with a resident. And do we have a policy that are we responsible for any private meetings that the planner? No, we're not. Okay.
Well, there's no policy on it, but okay. I think it's inappropriate for the planner to have billed for that. I think it's both inappropriate, and I also think that it's a real professional violation of the relationship with the client. And I personally have some concerns, frankly, with that and the understanding of what the relationship is with the client. So I have some real concerns, frankly. It's not just on that billing issue, but it's in general. I have real concerns.
And there's nothing in the contract that they presented to us that allowed them to do that. So we need to address that.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally appropriate to talk to residents, obviously, after a meeting, but to set up a specific meeting and to bill the township for meetings and discussions with private residents, it's a real I believe, and this is just a personal opinion, that it's a violation of the relationship that exists between the Planning Commission, the Township Board, and the consultants. And I have some real concerns with our with not only this particular instance, but other instances as well. I won't go into the details of those concerns because obviously, you know, those are issues that I don't believe should be talked about and discussed, because they're sort of individual-related
I'll make the
personnel.
planning commission aware.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think it's
I agree
appropriate.
100% with
So-
you, Howard. You have anything else, Janet?
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yeah.
I would like to thank those who came tonight. This was very heated, and it's very uncomfortable for everyone, us and you, and I think that it's wonderful for anybody to come out and speak their mind and give their opinions, and you should all be applauded, whether people agree or disagree. Give yourselves a big pat on the back for being willing to come here and speak your minds. And happy holidays, happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, have a wonderful night.
Jackie, anything?
Yeah, I also wanted to extend appreciation for everyone that came out. I know by the discussions, everybody was passionate, everybody voiced their opinion, and the board does listen. All of us this is a good forum for dialogue and to educate people. I encourage people to come out more often and to be part of the audience. This is the only way you're going to have your voice heard, and I appreciate that as well. I do want to commend Howard for doing this. I was one of the, and I know several other board members asked for this to happen. We wanted to address this as one voice. We did not want to address this as separate voices. So in having Howard speak for us, it was one voice. So I just want to let everybody know that I commend him for doing this as well. And happy holidays.
Tracy, you got anything?
Nope.
No? All right. I guess the happy holidays, Merry Christmas to everyone. The only comment I had was just a little, I agree with Ms. Westover about everyone coming out and sharing your thoughts, but a little disappointed that so many of them took the advantage of an opportunity to talk about non-development and criticize the board, saying that of our non-transparency. And tonight's meeting was to talk about the bond issue and the full faith and credit of the township. So, but glad we still had the discussion, but maybe we could stick with the agenda and not accuse people of things that are not happening. Merry Christmas. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Thank you. Bye-bye.